Okay. All right. I'm going to call the work session for Tuesday, January 9th to order. We're going to start out by watching a hopefully not too awkward video of Jeffrey and I and the grants presentation.
Oh, good. I thought it was something from my search history online. I was going to say,
well, no, for sure not. For sure not.
Hey, thanks for watching. My name's Jeffrey Bergeron, councilman for the Breckenridge Town Council. I'm here with Mayor Pro Tem Kelly Owens, and we are your grants committee. Thank you guys for showing up. It's indeed a privilege here for the town of Breckenridge to contribute to our community's well-being and vitality. It has really been a privilege this year. Over $300,000 we've offered to the nonprofits that make our community function. $300K in grants for 2024.
That's right, Jeffrey. It's really so heartening to be a part of this community and the town of Breck. In addition to those that we'll name here today, we also support our community from the earliest stages in the child care centers all the way through high school. We do the scholarship program that the seniors will be applying for soon. And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the wonderful programming that we support through Breck History, which they do all kinds of things. They just restored the Jesse Mill, which is a really cool project. Breck Creative Arts, they take care of our beautiful arts district and then also put on some events throughout the year. And of course, wonderful BTO. They do so much for our lodging community, but they also are instrumental in our world-class events like Oktoberfest and the ice sculptures.
You know, some folks consider me a historical artifact. You know, and the money doesn't stop with the cold hard cash. We also give over $135,000 in-kind support through the various departments for different nonprofits across our community. It's a testament to our commitment to fostering a thriving community.
Yeah, and we're part of a bigger community. We definitely want to thank all of the towns and the county for agreeing to give the nicotine tax to wonderful nonprofits such as Burke, Summit County Care Clinic, and Building Hope.
You know, it's been people want more. A great collaborative effort over the years. I think we started this thing back in 1986, and since then we have really primed the pump for our incredible organizations that make the community function. Now, without any further ado, let's find out the lucky recipients of our grant dollars.
Let's do it.
10th Mountain Lacrosse, Alpenglow Chamber Music Festivals, Bethany Immigration Services for 2024, Blue River Watershed Group, Breck Film, Breckenridge Backstage Theater, Breckenridge Elementary PTSA, BOEC, Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center, Cafe Food Rescue.
Hi, I'm Daryl Lee. I'm a volunteer here for Cafe Food Rescue. We are packaging up food today. We have coleslaw, we have chicken and rice, and we also have some pulled pork that we're distributing to the Community Care Clinic and HURT today. And we're doing so with the help of the support of the town of Breckenridge, who helps us with our operational costs and with supplies we need in order to complete that mission. It's a pleasure for me to be a volunteer for this organization. It's amazing the volume of food that we are able to provide to this community on a regular basis to the Elks and many other organizations and people in need in this community.
Thank you.
Careers in Construction Colorado, CASA of the Continental Divide, Colorado Learning Connections, Education Foundation of the Summit, Family and Intercultural Resource Center, Friends of the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, High Country Conservation Center, High Country Soccer Association, Mile High Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, Mountain Dreamers Immigrant Advocacy, and Mountain Pride.
Mountain Scholars, Mountaintop Explorium, National Repertory Orchestra, Northwest Colorado Center for Independence, Smart Bellies, SOS Outreach, Special Olympics Colorado Summit County, Summit After Prom, Summit Colorado Interfaith Council, Summit County Youth, Summit County Youth and Family Mountain Mentors, Summit Lost Pet Rescue, Summit Public Radio and TV, Summit Rugby.
My name's Delilah Saberg, and me and Coach Barth are here today to talk about the grant that the town of Breckenridge gave us. It helped lower our fees for everyone joining the program and allowed us to go to travel tournaments as well. Without this grant, we wouldn't be able to do some of the things we're doing all year long, such as strength and conditioning in here in the weight room, which we do throughout the summer as well and in the off season. Thank you so much, Town of Breck, for your generous grant. It has helped us so much.
All right, today we are talking about the Town of Breckenridge grant that we received as a Summit Rugby team. We really wanted to thank everybody involved because it has allowed us to make our community bigger and better. It has afforded us multiple opportunities to play in different places and to have fun tournaments all over the state. And we really wanted to thank everybody involved with the helping of making this grant. So thank you from Summit Rugby.
Summit Valley Horse Center, Summit Youth Sports, Inc., Team Breckenridge Sports Club, Team Summit Colorado, the Summit County Rotary Charitable Fund, Timberline Adult Day Services.
Hi, I'm Tracy with Timberline Adult Day Services here in Frisco, and want to thank the town of Breckenridge for the grant opportunity that we received this year. It goes to serve our participants and healthy meals, outings, and a lot of fun things that we do here. We are celebrating 20 years here at Timberline Adult Day Services this year. We serve adults 18 and older with developmental and physical disabilities that can range from somebody with autism to cerebral palsy to seniors and folks with dementia. So we have a wide variety of folks that we serve in our community. We have folks that have lived here in the community a long time, up to visitors, second homeowners. We, on a day-to-day basis, we do a variety of things. We help with Meals on Wheels. We work with Smart Bellies. We do outings with the BOEC. We do a lot of fun activities throughout our community and really appreciate all the support that everyone brings to us, whether it's our volunteers, our board members, the town of Breckenridge support, and all of our funders and regular, just everyday supporters. Thank you, town of Breckenridge.
Women's Resource Center of the Rockies, youth entity.
Now, this has to be the most rewarding part of being a public official, is being able to hand out needed money to these incredible organizations. The final two grants are being presented by the Breckenridge Open Space Advisory Commission, which I'm the council rep on that one. And these go to the Colorado 14th Initiative and Friends of Dillon Ranger District. And that's a day. We're feeling pretty good about ourselves, I bet.
It does feel really good. And thanks for you and all you did to get that open space fund in place. What an important part of our community.
All right, well, we'll see you next time. I think we should take that on the
I do again. Where's that, Eric? Huh? Is that online or is that like
on just right here
on Fox News mostly? Fox News mostly, yeah. It's going to be great.
All right. Anything to say about that, Jeffrey?
No, but I'm so serious. It is the best thing about being up here.
Yes.
Is kind of priming the pump of these cool organizations.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's really
especially fun. That adult daycare. I'm going to be using that pretty soon.
It is.
Yeah, they handle dementia.
Okay. Moving on to our regular scheduled items, Planning Commission decisions. No decisions really. They did have a discussion on window signage. Anybody have any comments?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, I think it's an important discussion to have, and I think we need to really make sure we're and I appreciate staff bringing it up. And yeah, I think we want to continue to review what's going on there because, you know, the lettering component to it, you know, we're just going to make sure downtown feels good in the historic district, the character that we're not kind of having this loophole that changes the character of our business core. So look forward to continuing to watch it evolve.
Yeah.
I would add just to be thoughtful about what is now considered the backside of the buildings, which we hope to be the second front side of the buildings.
Right.
if we're successful in getting the Riverwalk engaged the way we hope we will.
Yeah. They do have a storage situation though. I mean, as you well know.
Yeah.
So they might need a little help from us. All right, anything else? No? Okay, moving on to legislative review, 2023 budget appropriations. Tracy? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'm here for the second reading of the 2023 budget appropriations. This appropriation is being submitted based upon the review of November year-to-date actuals and the December projection by fund. The details of the request was made in the initial reading. It has not changed, so that is available for you. And just any questions to that?
We have to remember a month ago.
That's always.
Questions?
I took notes.
To run through any of the details or?
Nope, I think we're okay. Everybody had it in the packet. Yeah?
Yeah.
I think we're okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, second reading of an ordinance to approve lease renewal for US Bank. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So before you is a second reading of the US Bank lease renewal. There have been no changes since first reading. Essentially, US Bank is hoping to basically remain in their space for 2 more years with additional extension of 1 year at their option, and all of the lease provisions have remained the same.
Great.
No changes since first reading.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Nothing? Feel good?
You're cool with this, Kirsten, looking at this lease and all that stuff? All right, good.
I like the 2 years.
Yeah.
Option.
Yeah.
I feel good about that.
Okay.
It's good lease.
Yeah. All right, moving on to charter amendment, election commissioner term, second reading. Shannon, I think this is you.
I can take
Kirsten.
There are 2 proposed charter amendments on tonight. This is the first one that is proposing to extend the election commissioner terms from 2 to 4 years. There have been no changes since first reading, and we recommend approval. We believe that this will allow some continuity and carryover of experience in the election commissioner role. If you have any questions, please let me know.
No.
Any questions?
No, just internally, I know staff is working on a fact sheet, which I think will be really helpful for getting out to the community. And I think as council members, we should understand our role and what we can and can't do in advocating for these amendments.
Okay, so as far as the fact sheet, is that for the commissioner? Is that for the appointee qualifications? Is that for both? Okay, so are we done with the first one then? Let's just make sure that there's no other comments on, and that's the commissioner term, and that's just for an extension. So then if you can just remind us for the charter amendment for board and commission appointee qualifications, why we're doing that, just so that we can continue to get that information out.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to make a motion sorry, do you want to cover that one right now? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So the second proposed amendment to the charter is to allow more flexibility over qualifications for certain boards and commissions and what it takes to be appointed to them. The charter mandates that for permanent boards and commissions that appointees must solely be both a resident and elector of the town. We're proposing that we strike that what is a bit rigid language in the charter, which will allow council to establish qualifications in our ordinances. There are 2 charter created boards that this will not apply to. That is Planning Commission and Election Commission. But then the staff will propose later to come behind and create some qualifications in our ordinances. we believe that this will allow for more opportunity and looking at potentially a limitation of those that are working or living in the broader Upper Blue community. I'm looking to see if there is anything else I want to cover in this one. There's been no changes since first reading. And then do you also want me to comment on the factual sheet or?
Yeah, that'd be.
Okay, so the plan here is once this does get referred to the ballot, so it will be on the April 2nd, 2024 ballot, both of these proposed charter amendments. There are strict rules that will apply under the Fair Campaign Practices Act. We do intend to provide a memo to you that will, delineate some of these rules. But the main thing is that we have to give factual information only to the community and also provide both pros and cons to the change so that everyone's very informed and we don't, lead voters to a certain direction. So we have a draft in place, and once these are moved forward tonight, then we can distribute that to council with some of the Fair Campaign Practices Act rules.
So you said what we know won't be eligible is planning, and you say election committee?
Election commission.
So is it possible that the BOSAC could be opened up?
It is always possible that a council could change something that is codified in the municipal code, but as we've discussed here, we're really looking at setting those qualifications for advisory boards.
Okay.
The one that we want to make some permanency and, really dedicate resources to diversity here is Social Equity Commission and a few of the other advisory boards.
Jeffrey, do you think it would be important to add BOSAC to the other two that are?
I do personally, but there again, I'm not totally total aware of what perhaps the downside would be, but I'll tell you, there was a couple times that we lost some good, two of our, one of our chairmen, he's in French Creek. Now he couldn't serve. We are a really active participant that bought a house in Blue River, and then he had to resign. So I don't know, but there again, I'm sure there might be some issues that I'm not aware of, and BOSAC always has a lot of applicants, but I will say that the trail systems in our open spaces is used and cherished by from Hoosier Pass to Farmers Corner.
Yeah.
So.
But Kirsten, just to clarify, with the ballot language we've selected, that will give councils the opportunity in the future to revisit. Right. So it's not saying we're doing that,
but just opens the door. Yeah.
That is why we try not to get very granular in the charter. It's so difficult to change. And this does, and even if you desire, later down the road to come back and visit that one, but this allows you to set those qualifications with more flexibility.
Cool.
Yeah. I really like the message it's sending to put, Equity Commission and childcare in a more permanent state. I think that's the most important thing to most of us up here.
We have 3 that are temporary, so events committee, childcare, and equity, that we can take away that temporary title and make them permanent advisory commissions or committees.
Yep. Great. Any other comments, questions? Jay, you look questioning.
Well, I'm just curious if with, childcare and specifically, we're still in a place where we're trying to figure out if that is a necessary advisory committee with the shifting of tuition assistance to the county and how that will affect what roles we have. But I think in general, there will still be a need for, how to use some of those funds and on expansions and changes. So I think that I think it's just interesting in the timing and the fact that we're right in the middle of going, what are we now that tuition assistance is out of our hands? What's next? What are we tackling? But there will always be a need, and there will always be. I think the permanency makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we have that long of a wait list, and we know it's not 600, but even if it's 100 plus, then sure seems like we're going to have some sort of advisory committee in childcare. All right. Anything to add? No? Okay. Moving along to resolutions. Resolution to approve mail ballot election. Helen.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So the last several election cycles that we have had, we have chosen to run them by mail ballot election. Our town code states that in order to run a mail ballot election, we must approve a resolution to do so. And so we would ask that you approve this resolution so we can run yet another mail ballot election. We believe the voters are used to these types of elections at this point, as the county and the state have gone this direction as well.
Agreed. Any questions, concerns, comments? Thanks, Helen. Yeah. Next up is the confusing one, resolutions to accept mayoral resignation and set mayoral election date. I don't know is this Shannon or Kirsten?
I'll take this
okay.
One, so
all confused.
Hopefully I can make it very clear. Some of this is formalities. So we're in receipt of Mayor Mamala's letter of resignation from the office of mayor dated December 21. And so he has now been sworn in and serving as a county commissioner, which creates a vacancy in the office of mayor. We need you to approve the acceptance of the letter of resignation, and then also in that resolution we set the date for the mayor office election, which is going to run concurrently with the regular election April 2nd, 2024. That's the first step in the process.
Okay. Any questions, comments? I know Eric's not here today, and I know Rick's on the line, but I don't know if Eric is. But I do think it's really important that all of us just take a second and realize that Eric was involved in council for 8 years, planning commission for 8 years, and as mayor of the town of Breck for 8 years. And really that level of commitment is maybe a little bit insanity, but also just really exceptional. And getting us all through COVID, I know that many of us really got to know him better during that time, and what a leader, and really so much to admire there. I'll probably say the same thing tonight, but usually we have far more people during the day, so I wanted to make sure that we recognized him during this meeting. Jeffrey, you want to?
No, just what you said it perfectly. And I think Eric knows how we all feel about him.
Yeah.
And not only up here, but the staff as well.
Yeah. But the great news is that he would have been done as mayor in 4 months anyway, because he was termed out. And now we get to work with him more, and he'll continue representing us in the larger community. So we're very lucky that he's willing to do that. All right. Done? Yeah. Anything else?
Well, I do think it's important to add, not part of the resolution, that Mayor Pro Tem Kelly Owens now serves and provides all of the duties of the mayor. So after this resolution is approved tonight, you are in charge.
Great.
So you'll do a fantastic job.
Shannon, to be clear, Shannon's in charge.
Is there such thing as a mayor pro tem? Like, in other words, would Kelly appoint somebody to serve in her stead if she is unable?
Yeah, I have thought about that. It is not, the process for that is not covered in the charter. And I do think that we should probably come back and talk about how that looks going forward. It's a good question.
I know, but you don't want the job, huh? All right. Moving along to a resolution to accept settlement and approve MOU pertaining to Lower Blue Reservoir. Kirsten, you are really featured.
I'm thinking James
great.
and I will tag team this, but you all have received quite a bit of information, and James has lived this much longer than I have. This is the settlement between CSU, the town of Breckenridge, Summit County, and some Western Slope entities. Each entity will have to go through their governing body and approve this settlement separately. And it's my understanding that we are the first to take action. I think maybe, James, do you want to cover the main substantive portions of the settlement, or I'm happy to move forward with that?
Yeah, I guess the real deal points in this are, and it's taken a long time to get to this point, was obviously we were dealing with a large water utility, and in Kirsten's memo, they have a desire to do an expansion of a current reservoir, Montgomery. And as part of that, they get a lot of the water through transcontinental diversion from this basin. And they're going to use those water rights in their expansion of Montgomery. But through all that discussion, and again, this has been almost like 10 years in discussion, and there's been a lot of changes of both water attorneys and board members on Springs Utility side, and even some changes within the county and here in the town, I guess, as well. All that being said, it was a long negotiation for really ensuring that we get wet water, a firm yield of water that is guaranteed to both the town of Breckenridge and Summit County. And again, in the memo, there are numbers that were in there. The reservoir itself is going to be 600 acre feet, and the mechanism to fill that is kind of a function of substitution and non-substitution years, how much water we get. And then both the county and the town have water and other locations as part of our portfolio that we can then exchange back up there. It's really a very valuable location to have water. It really provides a lot of opportunity for the town to exchange and mainly operate our Breck North water plant a little bit more efficiently in the summertime. But also there's some aesthetic opportunities too, that really those conversations go back 10 years when we were talking about a pump back on the Blue River, about allowing and being able to have more water in that Blue River. And so there's obviously some discussions about that today, about having more water in the Blue River. So all that being kind of said, really the long discussion this was also the Colorado River District. They really represent so many utilities and water owners all the way down to really to the border of Colorado. And when this first discussion started to get presented, there was a great concern about how much water was going to be diverted and how that was going to be accounted for, and timing of that, and so on and so forth. So throughout all those discussions, now the River District is very comfortable with what has been committed to as part of this MOU in terms of how much water will remain in the river is really important. And then the second piece of this too that's in the memo is also that there's no opposition as part of the bigger Shoshone deal, purchase of that water right from Xcel. So these are all, there's a lot of moving pieces in this, but we're in a really great place right now. And again, this is an important project for not only town of Breckenridge, but for Summit County. There won't be a lot of activity for this project for a number of years, I'm going to say, because Colorado Springs now, once all this gets signed, they'll undergo their permitting process, and that there's a long lead in that. And then if there's any opposition, whether it's Park County or any other of the review agencies, that potentially could hold it up a little bit as well. But we anticipate that the way that the agreement reads, we could go under or apply for our permit somewhere in 2028 and maybe undergo, and we're hoping that would be sooner, but that's kind of what it.
If throughout the negotiations and the wrangling by the various entities, this is tweaked somehow, you'll come back before the council and kind of alert the board about what the changes are. Because I can see, you know, I mean, we can sign on to this as is, and then down the road, the Springs or Park County, other people want some sort of concessions, saying, you know, that we might not be as comfortable with.
Right. Yeah, you can cover that.
I do not anticipate that will happen. The worst case scenario is maybe some entity doesn't approve it, but I don't.
It did what?
Maybe a governing body doesn't approve like up or down.
Okay.
But this is fully baked, and the verbal agreement at this point is we have reached terms.
Okay.
So I don't anticipate that happening. And yes, we would come back to you if there was any substantive change.
Yeah, the other backstop that's as part of this agreement that's in part of this longer settlement is that in the event that the Springs their utility is approved for the expansion, and due to the timing and the climate of constructing additional reservoirs, for whatever reason that we were not able to be permitted on that, there still are some built-in assurances that we will get the water that is in there.
We own, yeah.
Yes, and that will be, again, wet firm yield water. Any other questions? Or?
To go through an environmental impact assessment? Yeah.
And that'll all go through Park County, since the reservoir itself resides in Park County. So they'll have to do it.
Okay.
That as well, part of that process.
Mm-hmm.
Really, there's been some preliminary work on it, Kelly, and it's really the nature of raising the dam crest and stuff isn't going to significantly impact, you know, that much over what has been already disturbed.
Mm-hmm.
So CSU is not anticipating there's going to be a lot of questioning to that, and certainly, but you never know.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Something will become endangered between now and then. That lives up there.
And you said CSU would have to facilitate the environmental impact.
Yeah, at this point, it's all in their court. Really, this whole lengthy negotiation was really just to, more than anything, to make sure that we didn't have questions, that we were going to come back and pose opposition, because there's also a 1041 permit that's going to be necessary of Summit County, since the water is coming from this side, and there's some physical aspects of that. So they're going to need our approvals as well. And so this whole process was to ensure that we're not going to do that. So
fascinating, quite complicated. I understand why a guy as young as you has a gray hair. I mean, that map is fascinating.
Yeah.
I have no idea there's that much going on.
Yeah, and that's just a small thumbnail of a much larger picture.
Wow.
So.
Water law in the West.
Yeah.
Yikes. All right. Any other questions? Concerns? Thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten. Manager's report. Shannon Smith.
We have heard that some folks are having trouble hearing on Zoom, which also means that our recording won't be clear. So if everyone could just make sure they're speaking into their microphones, that would be helpful.
Complaining?
It was not Rick, although I have asked him if he can hear.
All right, Shannon.
Ready? Put a few projects in there for updates, most notably the Blue River Pathways project. I wanted to make sure council was comfortable with the program that we have proposed for the Schoonover site. That's the drawing we have in there. We reduced the number of amenities and replaced much of the asphalt paving previously proposed with recycled asphalt. I want to make sure that meets the intent of what council was thinking. Yes.
And this significantly reduced the cost of this pilot of Schoonover?
I wouldn't say significant. Had we gone with the shade structures, that would have been a substantial cost, but it'll be a slight reduction for the material savings.
Okay.
But we haven't bid it yet. We'll be finalizing these plans and putting it out to bid next month.
Is anyone else concerned that we're kind of putting Breck e-bikes out in front of everyone here. And they're kind of, I guess I always thought the concept was to keep them more focused on workforce housing at one end, and then, a little more subtle locations on the in-town end.
So we do have an existing hub at this location. I agree it'll be more visible now that Schoonover will be torn down, but it was one of our most favored locations for the program. But if we desire to move it, we can. I'm not sure Teddy will be thrilled with that idea, but
yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if if you're getting into town, it's a great spot to drop off, and then when you're going back out to the housing, it's like an end of day, like you got to pick up a bike somewhere, right? So and I hear what you're saying. It's an interesting kind of thing to try and balance and figure out.
My concern is more a guest. An out-of-town guest is going to think, well, this is a cool program. This is for us. And they go and they hop on and they go, holy smokes, this thing's expensive. And that's how we designed it, to discourage that kind of behavior. But it creates a negative feeling to our guests who decide not to use the e-bikes because they feel like the town of Breck is overcharging. And I just hate doing that to our guests. And so that was why I liked the aspect of it where more subtle in the locations. And I guess, that this was a more subtle location with the Schoonover building there. This is going to be front and center with the Schoonover building gone. So I don't know if anybody else has that concern.
I think it's a great point, and I'm sure Teddy has thought about this because we've heard I feel like we had a handful of emails to council that people were surprised when they went over half an hour how expensive it is. So I'm sure with messaging within the app, on the signage, we can help alleviate that. But I think from a location, this is ideal. It's in the center of town for workforce to come, drop off, pick up.
That would make me feel better, Carol, because, with signage, we could really promote our local shops. We have many local bike shops, which, have far more affordable e-bike rates.
Yeah.
And maybe that would be an approach that sends a positive message out to our guests and a positive alternative.
We'll look at how we're messaging that on the app versus signage and come with some recommendations. Does that?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wouldn't even be afraid to have a signage saying these are designed for short trips. If you want to spend, a day on these things, there's a bunch of local shops that it can be more affordable.
Something to that effect. I agree, Jeffrey.
We have some of that language out there. I'm just not as familiar with it. So
I'm happy to talk to Teddy about it.
We'll bring it back and revamp.
Where is Teddy?
He can't hear us. He's probably the one who complained.
Yeah, he's writing signs.
Is the overall goal of this zone to kind of do the testing of the hub? I've got a little bit of concern on just, and I'm okay with it in the moment, right? Because it's a test, but like just kind of the overall look, and it'll be an improvement over the Schoonover building, but just the crusher finds, and I don't know. I think that's such a visible zone that when we do have some permanence there, I think, I'd like it to look pro.
Absolutely. I think we want to test the use to see if there's an area where people congregate, check out the water station, see if the restrooms are getting utilized. And then if we wanted to keep this program there, we would absolutely want to do a higher level of finish.
I'm so thankful you just said that.
Anything else?
I have nothing else on this. I'm just curious for the food and beverage pilot program. How many businesses are we aiming to get signed up for the pilot?
That is a great question. I don't know if we've really scoped that. We want to make sure we're shaping it so it's large enough so we can see an impact, but also something that we can manage really well with the pilot. So we'll have to come back to you with that once we get the proposals.
Okay.
So I don't have an answer.
Have you?
Sorry.
I was just curious if you'd had anyone reaching out interested in being part of the pilot program?
The RFP goes out tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the restaurants reaching out?
Yeah.
Not to us directly that I'm aware of, but we'll start.
We're doing a presentation at the Restaurant Association meeting in
February.
So the first Wednesday of February at 9 a.m. So I think that will help gauge a little interest, bring things up. And I did a quick briefing at the December meeting because we didn't have a January one. And there were a lot of raised eyebrows, like, that's pretty cool. So
Oh, good. Not like you're crazy.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
That's right. Not raised eyebrows.
Month of February, like Jay's saying, is really going to be the launch where we start engaging all the businesses.
What about on the RFP process? Is there more than one person submitting?
It'll be available tomorrow. The RFP goes out tomorrow, and then proposals will be returned in 2 weeks. And then we'll see how many companies we have that want to be considered.
Weeks. Just given the agenda tonight, and some of the things in the sustainability plan moving forward, do we have a C&D plan for the Schoonover building of when we demo it, of trying to do better than the 10% that was out of that trial set?
We are taking the first steps right now to get that plan together.
Great.
Hayden's assisting me. We're looking at getting the asbestos testing done, so we know the next steps when we engage a contractor to get this done in May. And there are some firms that specialize in this that we'll be reaching out to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, on this rec path, underpass and bridge design,
Mhm.
are we talking about the existing death traps that go under the bridges?
Well, this would be a new death trap, Jeffrey. Yeah.
Create a new one.
We're focusing on new ones.
Okay.
Primarily at Watson.
Yeah, all right.
And then what we need to do behind the Bly building to
Okay.
get
All right.
better width there and to get a finalized route over to the west.
I wouldn't change the ones we have at all. It kind of gets your attention. It's kind of a social Darwinism bicycling exercise.
But as those structures come up for replacement in the future, we would want to improve the underpasses at that time.
All right.
One last thought with the pilot project. I did hear from some skeptics about the program. So I think as much as possible when we're selecting the businesses, we could get different types of businesses, different location, as much as we can get within the pilot program to like show the community is large. This works for different businesses, different locations. That would be great.
And pass along any of the skepticism our way so we can address it as well.
Imagine the skepticism that you're hearing.
I'm sure Shannon knows too.
One more thing on the Schoonover. The Precious Plastics makes like benches and stuff, or they're able to do that. So I was just curious if maybe we could reach out and see if they would have the capability to provide some of the seating, and then we could put, like a Precious Plastics information or
I can look into that.
cycle information. That'd be
Definitely.
kind of cool.
Since we were talking about it, I'm just curious, Dick, did you have an alternative location that was like in town that would maybe accomplish what you're trying to do with the hub there? Rather than Schoonover?
Just, I hadn't really given that thought. I'd have to study the map and where the others are. I don't know those off the top of my head. I've seen it, but I don't have it to memory. But just something that's not quite so visible. Or signage might be the better solution, honestly.
Yeah.
Where we really have the opportunity to push people to our bike shops.
Yeah.
There's two positives to that.
Well, it's gonna be an interesting exercise. I think having it, testing it, and then to me, there's also kind of the seasonality with it, where it's like it'll be crazy busy. I think in the summer, and then in the winter, obviously once there's a permanent structure there or whatever you put in place, it's like maybe it's kind of this like desert then in the winter, right? Like I don't know. It's just gonna be interesting to see what's good there.
Blue River Plaza during the winter.
Yeah,
not
that's
on
true.
the coldest days, but on many days they do.
That's a good point. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. I was just curious. Thank you.
Teddy did want me to share. He's talking to me through the phone, but he said that was our third busiest hub in town, and 12% of our brekkie ride trips start or end there. So pretty useful. Again, you are correct that it is very visible, especially without the building being there, but we're happy to put signage up and directing people. We did have pretty good signage with bike shop names and whatnot before, so we can do better with that, but it's a very used hub, myself included.
I just want guests to understand we're not trying to, you know, take advantage of a pricing thing on a recreational device in our community. You know, we value them and we want to offer them great value in their vacation. The bike shops do it better than these bikes.
Yeah. But it's good Teddy's paying attention.
All right.
Anything else?
You done with Shannon?
For now.
Since Matt's already here. Right into mobility.
Mobility.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Couple quick updates. The RFP for our mobility planning app closed last night. We received 11 proposals. We're about halfway through going through them, all fantastic. So we're hoping to get them through, do some follow-up interviews later this week, and then do an award early next week. So hopefully move along here, but some great proposals coming out there. And then the big topic, obviously, is the South Gondola permit, and we want to have a little bit of discussion on that. I think I wanted to preface the conversation with really the theory of this is it really is meant to be a premium permit. You know, the idea of it is covered parking. While it's not going to be guaranteed, people that are using the permit are mostly going to have in and out privileges, which is not common with our current permits that are $100 because those lots fill up early and they stay full for the majority of the day. So on the other end of the spectrum, anybody that utilizes this South Gondola permit is actually going to open up, not necessarily one for one, but it's going to open up one of the parking spaces in the other high demand lots. So I think a lot of thought has gone into it. Definitely the number is high, but I do think that there's a reason behind it. But that being said, I'd love to answer questions and discuss this.
Matt, would you also just note the price of the lower exchange and courthouse?
Yep. So all of our permits, $100 for the regular employee permit, $300 for the courthouse permit, and $500 for the lower exchange permit. For the lower exchange permit, all of these permits, we do a lottery system, similar to what we would do here. And the lower exchange permit at $500, we only offer 15 of them per year, just due to the small volume of the space.
Where's the lower exchange lot?
Right behind Briar Rose, I guess would be the easiest way to put it.
Oh.
It's the lower one below. There's the upper exchange, which is the deck right across from Fatty's, and then down below is the other one.
Is there currently a parking permit for South Gondola that exists?
There is not. There is not. There has not been one since we opened the parking structure. We wanted to gather data and information over the last couple of years to kind of understand how people move throughout it. And now that we're seeing some underutilization during certain times of the week, this Monday through Thursday period, we think this might be a good test time for it.
And this is going to be Monday through Friday, correct?
Yeah, sorry. Yep.
No,
yeah,
I'm sorry. Clarifying. Yeah. And then is this is going to be employee only?
That
is this going to be a general resident parking pass that would be available?
So I would look to you or Shannon to necessarily provide that guidance. My recommendation for this test is probably direct it towards employees with some sort of proof of employment within the town. Currently, all of the employee permits that are $100, those people have to prove that they're part of the parking district. So we have potential to change it if we want to, or do a hybrid, but I would recommend to keep it focused that we try to do an employee only, where you have to prove that you work in town.
And just for reference, what was the last year we offered a resident annual parking pass for the gondola lots? Do you remember?
I don't know that we did. I think it was the ski resort, and I can follow up with them, but they offered a resident skier season pass. It went away when about a year before the parking structure closed to be built out. I don't know what the cost of it was and how many they gave out, but it was a very popular product.
As I recall, it was in the 300 or 400 range.
Oh, I thought it was like 1,200. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're wrong.
I'm used to.
Is that what you remember, Shannon? 300 or 400?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the $100 lots currently permit, are they Monday through Friday, or are they 7 days a week?
Most of them are 7 days a week. There are some variations where public parking can happen later in the evening or whatnot, but for the most part, they're 7 days a week.
I think Wellington lot is another one where it's, I think, Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
And then open
6 to 5 and then open after 5 p.m. So we have a few variations to try to keep people on Main Street and using the town. But
and again, I think in some of those cases, we knew what the pattern of utilization was. And so we knew we could offer spaces on certain days and likely have some availability.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep doing questions and I've got comments.
Any other questions? Comments?
I really appreciate you acting on this so quickly, Matt, because I think that idea was just thrown out at the last meeting. So, yeah. I like it. I think the price is high, particularly being Monday through Friday. I would love to see this be the price and give locals a $100, $150 discount and an extra round, an extra ticket in the lottery. Something like that. I think this is too high for locals, personally.
Which ones, Dick? Everything?
The like, 625
okay.
And 750.
Yeah.
What do you mean locals? You mean people who live and work in Brooklyn?
Live and work. Yeah, workforce.
But it's only for, so you're saying if we don't decide to do, because right now we're talking about only workforce for the pilot, right?
That's my recommendation.
I would put it out as, here's our price and we're giving $150 off for locals, and we're going to let locals have first stab at the lottery. And if it doesn't fill, then we put it out to everybody else at the higher price.
I guess one question I would have for council with the non-employee piece, I know we would like to see more utilization of the lot, but with that comes more traffic in the core of town. And so you want to open this up to outside of employees, to just, someone from, say, Silverthorne who wants to buy a permit and drive over back and forth to ski.
Again, I would go out first to our workforce, and if we didn't fill the 75, then second round I'd put it out there.
But no workforce is going to pay $3,200.
No, it's not for that. It's
okay.
$625 for this year, and then a full year next year would be $750.
Okay.
Not with the higher price lots, the exchange lot for those passes. Does the lottery fill? Like, is there a high demand for those?
The only one that we actually go over and have to turn people down or turn them to the next permit is the lower exchange. The courthouse lot, I think we do hit our actual maximum, but we don't generally have to turn too many people away.
Okay. Yeah, on Dick's point, with our workforce, this does sound pretty high. So if we do stick it to workforce, I doubt we'll get close to that number.
And I think we'll get a negative feeling from them in addition to not getting the numbers.
But
I love that you're experimenting here, and I think you're going to learn a ton no matter what decision you make.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out
I agree that it seems high to me.
So if it's 650.
But I think test it at whatever number makes sense and learn and adapt it. Like, we're gonna have to adapt it to get it to that right sweet spot. I think I'd love to see it go to employees first, but then I also think about the number of folks that park on Main Street for 4 hours because it's affordable, and like, I'd like to offer it out to non-workforce as well, like in a secondary tier, Because I think that'll alleviate some parking in some key spots in town and maybe free up for businesses, kind of those key spots. So, and I think the number should probably be lower, but trust your judgment to pivot if it is.
You know, I did the math, and I could be correct. I could be wrong. Probably am. But if it's $650, you know, it's like $54 a month if you divide it by 12 months. If someone works like 5 days a week, 4 or 5, weeks a month, it's like less than $2 a day for parking.
And only $50 a month. I mean, that seems pretty reasonable.
But so I don't know. I mean, I think I'm going to defer to these guys. I
100% agree. I'm going to defer to him, and to me, it feels high.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, trust him to pull the trigger and then adapt and come back to us if it is not getting the traction that he wants.
Yeah.
Kind of recenter the thought. I think one of the big things here is this all kind of began with a lot of our workforce commenting negatively about them not being able to find a parking spot in our employee lots. So really the idea here, I think, evolved from we have this good parking structure and we can start utilizing it a little bit more. So I think that just hopefully brings it back together, that we're trying to alleviate the high demand of or over demand of our current parking lots for our employees
and get people to
put them into there, right?
Yeah. So I take a lot of comfort in just so I can say it's your idea.
I don't have a car, so I'm fine.
Yeah, it'd be good. So, yeah.
Okay, so OJ, did you want to add something?
I guess my unsettled thoughts, or at least what's not all put together, is the thought that once we put something out there, to be really hard to bring it back. And I think that is where, as much as it almost pains me, as much as I would love to say any resident of Breckenridge that can show residency of the town of Breck or Upper Blue, whatever it might be, should be allowed to get in on this. Like that's my inkling. But once we do that, it is impossible to take that back. That it's going to be really, really difficult. And so in a testing phase, and maybe that's just this year, that we do it with employees or current employee pass holders or whatever it might be, to kind of inch this thing through a little bit to see what the demand is, what the price sensitivity is, and then be able to make a more educated decision for the 24-25 season. And it is like parking is still an issue. And I think that when it comes to congestion, having locals go around and, the sawmill lot over and over again and then go somewhere else, that's not good either. And I think that there is a value to be able to provide a parking space for them. I think it'd be prudent to take a slower approach. That being said, I don't believe that the South Gondola will be as coveted as like a sawmill or Tiger Dredge, because it is kind of seen as out there a little bit, where if you're on the north or south side of Main Street and you're not in the center of the core town of 100, 200 block of either side, that's a walk, and so I think all those things kind of bubble through without, not being coherent, but a bunch of ideas, right? Like of the different things that come in. So, I don't know what that looks like though. I don't know how to allow it to open up, make it, and I don't know how, Dick, I don't know how you do it, but like we pay for our employees' parking pass. So I don't know if this is a fall on the businesses or will the individual, or how you see that, but I think it would be a financial burden on some of our entry level workforce to be able to fund that at the prices stated.
I wonder who would it be more desirous for? I mean, I think a Breckenridge residents can avail themselves to our transportation service. So I think some of the want might be people that live out of town but work in town. So, but I think you guys got to figure all that out.
Good feedback. I think that we can work with something here and come back next meeting with some thoughts.
Thanks. Good stuff.
Add, I think the other thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when we spoke with the ski area, we really did talk about this as an employee benefit as opposed to general public. And we would definitely have to take that back to them. They might have some other ideas on that. But we can collect data, come up with a program that we offer up for the remainder of this year, and as we get closer, talk about what 24-25 looks like.
Are you going to do a first come first serve, or are you going to open a lottery?
We would probably do a lottery, I think, to keep it fair.
Okay. Then you'll be able to gauge the level of interest too.
The demand for sure.
Great. Yep. Okay. Anything else? No. Great. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
It's kind of a supper fest, but did a good job. All right, housing and childcare update. Oh, I'm sorry, sustainability. Sorry, Jesse. Just wanted to scare you. No, don't rush.
No,
don't rush.
She's a rookie.
We're ahead of schedule. I just botched it. That's fine.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I have nothing specific to add to what is in your memo, and happy to answer any questions based on what's in your packet.
No.
I thought the slide, the PowerPoint was super interesting. One of the things that I pulled out of it was that deconstruction takes 6 to 8 jobs for every one that demo takes. And I was just wondering, like, obviously that would create additional barriers to entry of that program taking effect, as it would increase the cost to do deconstruction versus demolition, and seeing how that affects the program's success.
Yeah, it's certainly something we don't have a lot of experience in. The city of Boulder has a deconstruction ordinance that we're trying to learn more about for this very reason. But it is a lot simpler and a lot cheaper to come in and just demo something than it is to completely deconstruct. And so, in fact, there was just a story in the Aspen Times about how Pitkin County is increasing their C&D fees as well, which is not directly tied to deconstruction, but because they're trying to get people incentivized to comply, and it's just so much easier to demo it. So there's definitely a lot of economics involved with it too, which is why we're really looking forward to testing it on Schoonover as well. Yeah. More to come. Does anyone want to get involved with C&D?
I think Kelly,
I'm on the task force.
Yeah, I covered the first one, and I think Hayden's going to every meeting. So, one thing I think to make sure within that, there's a couple building and construction industry voices represented, but I know we want to hear a lot for them because ultimately this is going to impact them.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, we had a lot of lessons learned from the code updates a couple of years ago, and I know that RRS has been specifically directed to have special attention paid to our contracting community in this regard. It also is helpful that Kat Slaughter with Burt Sites is out there doing some pilots, and she's also been working with Alta Verde too on their not deconstruction, but on their construction site diversion. So we'll learn a lot from that project as well.
Anything else?
Jesse, on this, I agree with Jay. This whole presentation was really good, and I'm glad we're heading down this road. It's great. On universal recycling, how do we feel HOAs are receiving it? Are you getting resistance? Starts this summer, right? HOAs?
Yeah, well, forgive me, the timeline in my head, full compliance by next year, 2025. We've spent, I know we've been in direct contact with over 50 HOAs. Hayden has done a number of site visits. The issues that we're running into primarily are if enclosures need to be expanded, we're running into conflict regarding parking and setbacks.
not some on cost, but I think the first immediate barrier is just sort of the site planning. And so we haven't even like gotten into the cost piece. Also, we have screening requirements, so there could be potentially some flexibility that we come back and ask the council about regarding whether recycling containers could be located outside of the enclosures. So those are some of the initial hurdles, but in a lot of instances, they have been able to reduce the size of the trash to add the recycling. And so a lot of properties have felt like they're either already in compliance or are looking for short answers. The other thing is also that we've had some interest in the Universal Recycling Grant Program, but a lot of folks aren't at the point of costing yet. So they've submitted an application, but they haven't been able to provide us with like their project budget yet. So we've been asking them here in 2024 to really vet that and get that organized.
The reason I ask is I was just at a couple of homeowners meetings and didn't come up. And one of them, where the property is managed by one of our larger property management companies, the staff seemed to know nothing about it.
It's definitely been a challenge between the property management company that might be hired by the HOA and then talking directly to the HOA board, who are residents and owners. We have had a lot of owners who have reached out to us and said, thank goodness for this. We've been trying to press the board for years to get this, and now they don't have an excuse. But related to the property management companies, I think there's a lot of miscommunication between the HOA board and the property management company, and then our outreach to either of those entities trying to get on site to help with the coaching.
Yeah.
We continue to we've reached out. Bella's helped us push information out. We've had the property management list, the lodging association. We've been doing the outreach, but
it's probably not getting past the top of the property management companies down to the working
boots on the ground.
The first round of effort towards it.
It's 50% commercial compliance by, I believe, mid-year, maybe October of 2024. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah. So
and then 100% compliance by next year.
Yeah.
So we're working through it.
Okay.
And continue. And Hayden's out there. He goes out with Ellie from the planning staff and
any contact on this if some of these property management companies.
I'm sorry.
Who would be town?
Hayden.
Hayden, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was going to mention this tonight, but since Jessie won't be here tonight, she's just been appointed to the Energy Office Energy Code Board.
That's right. Yeah.
So we're proud of her for being on that and happy to have some town representation at the Energy Office.
That's really cool. Congratulations. Jessie, do you think that there's an opportunity to, everyone carries their own water bottles and mugs and bags, but nobody carries their own silverware. If like in the next, half year or something, maybe we should think about whether that's something we're wanting to brand and put out, as Town of Breck, or I was thinking maybe it would be cool if we got those metal, like spoon fork, but the metal ones, because the plastic ones break immediately, and put Town of Breck and then give them out at like town cleanup or something like that. I'm just trying to figure out, I feel like that is the biggest stumbling block in that realm right now is the silverware.
And the reuse. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a great idea. We kicked some thoughts around this morning about it, and we just want to make sure that if we do go down that road, that we're not purchasing stuff that is just as cheap and chintzy as what we're trying to replace, so that there's some like ownership around it, durability around it. So we can look into what that might look like.
Don't people when they take to go food, they just eat it at home, don't they? I mean, let's see.
No, I mean, they might eat it at the new Schoonover property.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, a lot of people take it home. remind everybody that if you're taking it home, you have utensils at home and you could utilize them there. Yeah.
I really like that kind of starting that going
Maybe.
here.
Yeah, maybe it would get some.
Barbara's been to a couple of meetings where they've been doing that, where folks are bringing their own cutlery, and it starts to change your habits. It's like, why not just bring it, tuck it in a little carry away thing, and away you go. I like it.
Might catch on. Who knows?
We've also been using the universal recycling assistance, not just for like the enclosures and the recycling, but if businesses wanted to purchase their own like more durable, like replacing the plastics. So we've been supporting project proposals with that funding as well.
Cool. Great. Anything else for Jesse?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, Lori and Corey, housing and childcare. I saw you guys come in like 10 minutes ago and then it threw me off.
You messed you up.
You did.
Afternoon. We had quite a big packet in your council packet. Basically, it was a sort of review of the blueprint since that was adopted in 2022. And, you know, showed a little bit about how we've added over 250 units through both housing helps, buy downs, and new construction, and then laid out the next few projects that are underway and in the pipeline. And we're just here if you had any questions about that. I also did want to give you an update on Larkspur, because there will be a lot of information going out tomorrow in terms of the lottery, the lease up. We're starting to get close. The lottery is going to be February 20th. People will be asked to apply to enter into the lottery. You know, we already have 500 people on the interested party list, so we're expecting we'll get quite a few people applying to participate in the lottery.
This is that?
Pardon me?
How many units is that?
52.
Oh.
But, you know, there's a few units that are town-county units. There's a couple nonprofit units. So, you know, this project, I think it delivers only around 40 new units just to the general public. The big one that's going to make a huge difference in terms of our market is Alta Verde when it comes on in the summer with 172 units. But Justice Center units are great, and we'll have the lottery and go through that process of filling that apartment up. But that's what I had for you. We're thinking probably in regard to Larkspur, there will likely be some sort of groundbreak open house event that we think will be probably well attended. And I think that is tentatively scheduled April 22nd. So might start getting that on your calendar.
I call Corey on this. If we hear people, you know, people come to me us all the time saying, "Oh, I just got kicked out of my house, or my house was sold, or you know, I'm single guy and I need housing." What's the best way for us to refer them to what the possibilities are in Breck? Is it like townofbreckenridge.com, then go to the housing link?
Well, I mean, eventually, I mean, and it won't be very long before we are moving towards that one stop. We all direct people to the Summit Combined Housing Authority. We are really working hard to make the Summit Combined Housing Authority be the entity that is facing the public where you go if you're looking for housing anywhere in Summit County. Because right now they go to our website, they read about ours, but then they also go to Summit County's website and they go to Frisco's, and there's just not an easy way for them to find out what's available. I mean, right now, yes, they can go to the Town of Breck housing website, and they'll find out about our buy down program, our housing help program. They'll find out if we have any current buy downs that are for sale right now, which we do, but we pulled them off for a little bit, but we generally do.
So townofbreckenridge.com, then on the left is that housing, or is on top it's a housing thing?
Yeah, townofbreckhousing.com, and that's where they can go right now. But eventually, and it's not going to be, we don't think that long before we are really pushing this to the housing authority in terms of the information and clearinghouse.
Okay.
Do we have rental rates or AMI for the Larkspur?
Yes. Rental rates for Larkspur. We've got studios 1s and 2s. Studios are priced at 70% AMI, which is just around $1,300. 1-bedrooms are also priced at 70% AMI. That's $1,455 for a 1-bedroom. We've got 2-bedroom units that are $2,400.
And that's
100%. That's 100%.
That's 100%. And is that does that put a dent into our debt service on that, or and it doesn't obviously it doesn't cash flow, but are we?
And we haven't done a pro forma for a while, but I think we were shooting to the rents covering a third on this one, and then the town covering a third, and then county covering a third.
The last pro forma we've changed the rates a little bit based on the grant funding we received. The last pro forma that we did, it covered about 45%, which is all based on estimation of all of the expenses for that property. But based on our expenses we see in other properties that we already have and that are already functioning and open. And then obviously the town and the county have to cover the other portion.
In this case.
Exactly.
And you know, in that slide, you had the kind of the purchase demographics where 34% of our resident purchases are out of state, 29% are in town, and 37% is front range. How does that compare to previous years, and more importantly, like pre-COVID? How has that all shifted? Like, those numbers are great. I just don't know how to put them in perspective.
That's a great question. That actually came directly from the title company, so I think they probably have year over year that we could provide, because we didn't ask for that. We just asked for current, just this previous year. So I think that would be a great data point for us to look at. Yeah,
to see how that's shifted
over time.
Yeah. That was a new one for us, thanks to Darcy. So we're happy to have her and have that.
One other question and clarification, just because I'm still catching up on the housing, the world that we're in. That, from my understanding, it costs the town $49,000 per bedroom to get a current resident to put a deed restriction on their house, and it costs maybe like 2.5 times or 150% more for a buy down for us to buy a house, put a deed restriction on it, and sell it for a lower amount. And there's more risk because we can get stuck with the property. We're subject to volatilities with the market. Does that open up any opportunities to increase our subsidy on housing helps, where if the housing helps has zero risk, zero market fluctuality or trouble there, should we be looking or entertaining at increasing the subsidy to get people to put deed restrictions on their house, since it is so much lower per bedroom than the buy downs?
Yeah, some of the reason that it's lower is because the county participates with us on a lot of those. So the cost of the housing helps subsidy is not as low as it might appear, just because we're splitting a lot of those with the county. But it is definitely probably the most efficient way for us to get deed restrictions, for sure. And I don't think we upped our budget this year. We're still planning. I think we budgeted for 20 this year as well. And you know, some of it is just the opportunities that they're tough to find in terms of units that sort of meet our criteria. Yeah. So, I mean, I think if we ran into a situation where we saw there was a lot of opportunities out there and we maybe would be able to spend more than that, we would certainly come to Shannon and say, hey, we should strike while the iron's hot, because if you lose those units, you lose them. Because if they flip to a out-of-town buyer or retiree or something like that, then you've kind of lost that opportunity to get in there and help. So we think it's a super important program. And if we got to the point where we were pushing up the upper edge of our budget, I think we would reach out.
Both of those programs too are based on a percentage. So housing helps is we provide 15 to 30%, depending on the level of deed restriction through the purchase or to the homeowner. And buy downs are right in that same spot. So I know data is always different to look at, but what we look at with buy downs is to be below 30%. So when you look at it in that realm, they're actually funding about the same. But per bedroom, you're going to see a big difference because of the county participation. So
yeah,
that 15 to 30% includes what the county is participating with us, because they would split that number with us. But what we give the homeowner is somewhere between 15 and 30. And I think we ended 2023 with our average buy down cost at 26 point something %. So we were right in line, if that helps a little bit to compare those two projects too.
I mean, definitely less risky, because
It
we
is.
don't actually ever have to buy it. So I mean, we love both buy downs and housing helps, but housing helps is a little less risky.
Understood. Just, we all remember it's both of them are significantly cheaper than building our own, and so really both of them offer different things to different people that, you know, different interested parties. So we're trying to deed restrict as many existing structures in the valley as possible, because for multiple reasons. It's cheaper, bringing less new buildings into the valley, you know, as far as infrastructure pressure and that kind of thing. So,
Serving neighborhoods too, because not building a new neighborhood, you're keeping one you already have.
Well, Jay, I think it brings up a really interesting question in my mind, in that, like, do we eventually want to pivot to more investment there, right? One, just from you think about like the carrying capacity of the valley and how much construction can the valley and the basin handle, and, you know, flipping a existing home from market rate to deed restricted with a local in there, well, it doesn't impact infrastructure. It's there, and it's cheaper than building new anyways. And personally, I'd love to see us maybe ramp that up a little more, as, you know, certainly as we run out of land here, and maybe experiment with some higher dollar value offers on that, because there is much less risk, and we're not holding $5 million worth of housing that may be going down in value, right? So yeah, that program to me is awesome. And the numbers you just put out there on the sheets, like, it's incredible the amount of homes that you know your team's getting into the deed restricted category. But I think, yeah, going forward, we need more of those.
And it's really good because, I mean, we have ventured into the higher priced local housing, sort of missing middle, because through a buy down or a housing helps, we can get a 3 or 4 bedroom home with a garage that, you know, that is difficult to build nowadays, just because we have limited land and construction costs are so high, that I think housing helps and buy downs are both really good avenues for us to get some of those sort of missing middle a little bit higher. When we first started housing helps and buy downs, we were focusing on 1 bedroom condos. But, you know, we have definitely seen a few larger single family homes that we're being able to actually get deed restricted. So it's working out.
And we're having a lot more success with first-time buyers, whereas the town's money is leveraged as the down payment, which is fantastic, because those are the hardest for our people to get into.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to just see what interest rates do in the next little bit, because that, you know, that obviously impacts that whole for sale housing market.
Childcare?
We have a meeting tomorrow, so you'll see minutes in your next meeting.
Thank you guys very much. Thanks for this comprehensive report. It really shows how busy you guys are. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, committee reports. I think we've got equity in there. Should we save that for the discussion?
Yeah, those are the minutes, but we'll get into equity efforts in a second here.
Okay. Moving on to financials then. Dave and Pam, or just Pam. Oh, and Tracy.
Wow.
You guys are really.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. In your packet, you had the financials for the month of November, which covers 11 months of 2023. It is largely reflective of October sales tax collections. Overall, we're approximately 3.5 million over our year-to-date budgeted revenues in the excise fund. This is mainly driven by 4.5 million over our year-to-date budget and 1 million ahead of prior year actuals. As far as our year-to-date October net taxable sales, we came flat in comparison with 2022. However, just looking at the month of October, you're going to see in the total net taxable industries an increase of 5%. And this is largely driven by a large construction project that was reflected in the month of October. Otherwise, if we wouldn't have had this large construction project, we would have seen a decline for the month of October of 6%. As for our real estate transfer tax, it came in pretty much spot on in comparison for November of 2022, which put us ahead of our budgeted revenues by 18,000. Taxes due is flat in comparison with 2022, which confirms the picture of our net taxable sales being flat in comparison of 2022. And then the retail was interesting to see. It, for the month of October, in town had an increase of 5.5%. However, the out of town took a hit of 31% decline. I'm happy to answer any questions, and Tracy is here to answer any questions on the revenue and expenditure summary.
Questions? No?
Jay, go ahead.
I was just curious. I'm sure many of us, but I've been approached multiple times talking about real estate transfer taxes and about how they compare versus our zones. And I was just curious if at some point, if you find yourself with nothing to do, we'd be able to see the increased decline per the 4 zones that the STRs are divided into, just to look at the data, just so that if one day we do discuss it and see where it is, that we can have that information to reference.
That's an excellent question. I can definitely try to run some reports and look at that and see how it varies based on the zones.
Because the narrative that's being put out is
understood.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. The packet was very in-depth, and that's why no one has any questions.
Better every month.
Yeah. Cemetery fund is very healthy.
Thank you, ladies.
It's like giving you one, huh?
We're gonna take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back for equity blueprint.
I get a freebie. Yeah.
So good.
We're gonna bring this meeting back to order. Mac, please present the equity blueprint.
Evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of Town Council. My name is Mac Russo. I'm not a frequent flyer in the chamber, so hi.
We're happy to have you.
I serve as the staff liaison to the Breckenridge Social Equity Advisory Commission. I'm joined by several of our members this evening as well. Tonight, I seek your approval to publish the equity blueprint and release it to our community. The document itself is a dedication of all our commissioners and staff who make up our DEI committee as well. They've thoroughly reviewed and approved its contents. So I am here to answer any questions or concerns or provide any additional information you may have.
Could you introduce us to the commissioners that are
Yes.
here?
Behind me is our newest commissioner, Jotuan Daniels, followed by Lori Morocco and June Walters.
All right, cool. Thank
And then,
you
of
guys for
course,
showing
Michelle
up.
Sade.
Yeah.
And you know her, so.
Thank you guys for coming. I actually have a question for the commissioners. I'm curious what you guys are either most excited about that you've accomplished so far, or maybe what you're most excited about in coming in the future.
Yeah, that's for the people that are online so they can hear you. The microphone is.
Okay. I am most excited and most proud to be able to present such a document to our community. It is a calm and rational, sensible, and logical approach to how we are going to make our community aware, our partners aware of how our town is at the highest level of promoting social equity, racial justice, all those wonderful DEI components that have been so far not public, not easily talked about. I think that this document is giving us a great starting point. And again, I am proud of the document. I'm proud of our commission. I am very proud of the town for having such a commission.
I'll just add a little bit to that. We've done so much work. This is a very involved and active commission, and we meet monthly, and then we all serve on several subcommittees. And I'm excited to implement all the things that we've planned out and see them come to fruition.
Thank you.
This next meeting is next month.
Commissioners who have been, I mean, Dick, you'll remember when we created the Equity Commission, a lot of the questions was like, okay, what are your objectives with this? And we kept reinforcing the fact, you know, we want to hear from the community. We want this to be community driven. So all our commissioners have just done an incredible job in shaping the work, carrying it forward. And we really appreciate the time that's put into this because, as June mentioned, this is a very involved committee. It's not just that one meeting a month. These commissioners go above and beyond with subcommittee meetings. I mean, they bring their lived experience, their social circles, everything into this work. So the part of the blueprint, which is the external goals, really is community driven. And as was mentioned, this work has been ongoing. So we're publishing this blueprint at this time kind of to share with the community, solicit more feedback. But at the same time, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of great strides that have been started out of the Social Equity Committee. And then in tandem, and not siloed, very much in tandem, Mac mentioned the internal DEI committee. So maybe Mac, you can talk a little more about who's a member of that committee and what the work is.
Yeah, we have 13 staff members across various departments, all representing and joined of their own volition. This committee was created in June, so we are a little behind what the commission's been working on. Their first couple of months have been reviewing the internal draft of the blueprint that we received from the Equity Project. Some of their big wins was working on
starting to draft the equity training or equity lens training for their individual departments, because equity will be, again, very approach based off of how you apply it in your work. So we're really excited about that. But I would say their main accomplishment is updating the internal component or the organizational side of the equity blueprint to really reflect not only just the work that the commission does within the community itself, but also bringing in our town core values into that so that we are just constant throughout the board.
That's great. That's great. Being a part of it from the beginning and seeing how far it's come is just fantastic. This is a tremendous amount of work, and I agree. It's a incredible framework to move forward with, and not to say things haven't been done. There's been a lot done, and I'm really excited to see where we go. And I have to really express appreciation seeing the land acknowledgement in there. That's something I think is so important, and I'd love to see that be a much bigger piece of a lot of our outward town pieces. So it's great work. Lots of work done, and fantastic.
We did take half of that land acknowledgement from Breck History, so I do want to thank Larissa and June behind us. They put in the effort of writing that and drafting it correctly. So,
and that's a great point too, to bring in the fact that all this work, a lot of these accomplishments, it's not a siloed effort within the town of Breckenridge. We've had so many incredible partnerships. Everyone, NRO, BTO has done an incredible job, Breckenridge History. All our community partners. It is a collaborative effort that we learn from each other, we adapt, we move forward and do better. So that's something worth calling out. So thanks to all our partners.
I know the ESL classes that have started in collaboration with the BTO and with the Restaurant Association. I've personally, a lot of the folks I work with have participated, and it's made a huge difference.
Yeah, that communication piece of just being able to be out and integrate into the community and have that engagement has been a huge part of this commission. And we're excited to announce that the town's purchasing translator devices as well. And that's something that came out of our Immigration Rights and Advocacy Subcommittee in partnership with Mountain Dreamers. So again, in addition to those classes, I think we're looking to a really positive communication effort moving forward.
Mac, are those something you would loan out or make available to other businesses in town for when we're having meetings, and there may be folks that are at the meeting where another language other than English is a more comfortable language for them?
Dick, that's a great idea. And I think specifically with what Mac mentioned is really from that front desk type interaction. Town is still exploring ways to facilitate simultaneous interpretation for bigger meetings. But again, this is knowledge we're sharing. The BTO has already purchased several of these devices that they're using at kind of front desk points, but that's a great idea to explore if we could be a library for businesses.
Do have several that were planned as a floating device, so they can go as needed. For example, housing for any kind of upcoming open houses that they'll do, we can accommodate that. As Carol said, this is really intended for that front desk engagement. We do have three different tech pieces that we're looking at for accommodating wide scale meetings, including translating town council meetings as well. But these devices are utilized at the DMV. BTO purchased based off of our recommendation, and they support 104 languages and 28 different dialects within those languages as accessible. And it's a handheld device that does text to speech, so you don't have to rely on literacy as well. We're really excited for those to come in.
Fantastic.
There will be at least 3 that can float around.
You know what I'd like to, I don't know if it's feasible. Kelly and I just finished my last grants for the nonprofits. I'd be interested into kind of empowering the Equity Commission just to have a say or having, kind of suggestions about what they think perhaps funding might be for some of the marginalized population, and where, if they know of any particular area that we should look at, and encourage them to submit a grant application. Because some of these smaller entities might not be aware and might not be able to negotiate the whole grant application process. So
yeah, one of the things that the commission is currently working on is a mini grant application as well, that the Civic Engagement Subcommittee will be taking on. We've drafted our guidelines and our first round of questions. It's intended to be as a rolling support grant in addition to our annual nonprofit grant. So we'll start working on, we're hoping to publish it in March and start getting those nonprofits engaged, whether it's events or kind of like small scale roles. And then we saw when we started talking about this grant, the whole thing came about by encouraging Mountain Dreamers to apply mainly for our nonprofit grant, asking them to request more money so that it can continue to support the efforts that they do that meet what the Social Equity Advisory Commission works on with them. So thank you, Jeffrey.
it was really Carol's idea.
And I know you thoroughly read the grants this year, but he then even added language asking about within the general town grant program about equity efforts and sustainability efforts. So that was something that came out of the Equity Commission too.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I'm sure I saw that.
All right.
Regarding I don't disagree with anything that's been said. There's a ton of work been put in that to that, and all the efforts are super noble, and the technology is great. The blueprint itself is a massive document, 38 pages, outlining goals, tactics, metrics, which incredibly ambitious. I just wonder how valuable and realistic it is in the current size that it is, and if there would be any benefit to prioritizing 20 or 30% of the content in there to focus on immediately, and maybe using the metrics of this first year to as a metric for year two to see almost like establishing a baseline of sorts. Just the even goal one, the commitment to diversity and inclusivity is, we're here, right? And we have a committee. I think that has been achieved in a way that there is a very clear commitment. And then, when we were looking at some of the metrics of, for example, tracking the number of nominations and recipients of the DEI employee recognitions, should that be a metric, or should we just track what that is and see how that is changes from year to year?
No, that's a great point, Jay. And I'm happy to let you know that this document was nearly halved from what I was originally going to send to you. So you were all spared an additional 20 plus pages. But I think it would be really good to explore condensing down. I think the big highlight of it is that external component that our Social Equity Advisory Commission works on, and finding a way to really push that out more so, those 5 goals, than necessarily needing to broadcast everything internally that's being done. But one of the things we're working on for publication in March would be a community impact report that we could also start to establish trends across the years through there. That report is meant to capture everything that both committees, the Social Equity Advisory Commission and then the DEI committee, are going to be doing.
And who's leading that external effort?
Predominantly the commission itself, the Social Equity Advisory Commission, and then I play their support for whatever they're trying to do.
So the external is really driven from the commission with the support of town resources to an extent, because we know we can't accomplish all these goals just internally within the town of Breckenridge, which is why we're so grateful to lean on a lot of our partners in the community who are already doing incredible work, and we're trying to collaborate as much as possible. The document is quite large, but a lot of it is the history of how we got here, the introduction, the definitions, the actual strategic part, which is separated into the external and internal efforts, ultimately are 5 goals. And that's something we've talked about with equity work, is that some of them, sure, you can check it off the list, we've accomplished it, but a lot of it, it really is this ongoing cycle of making sure that we're establishing these more equitable systems and improving continuously.
Anything else for Mac?
Great work, guys.
Yeah. I'd just like to say that we're really honored that you guys have chosen to be a part of this commission. I mean, it's really important work, and thank you to the staff who's also involved. We are really looking forward to seeing what you can do, and really appreciative of what you've done so far. And please make sure that you feel very welcomed by everybody, that you can always reach out and talk to us more. And if you see problems or things that we can do better, we really want to hear that. So thanks very much for spending so much time and effort.
Thank you, Council.
Mac and Shannon, Scott, Dina, gosh, there's been so much time put into this. So many people contributed to all this. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mac. All right. Moving on to planning matters, historic sheds. And Mark, looks like sheds. The historic sheds.
Good afternoon. Wanted to take the opportunity to introduce you to our newest planner, Ellie Muncie. Ellie's actually been here for going on 6 months now, but I know some of you may not have had a chance to meet her in person. She's been doing some great work for us so far, including the work on historic sheds. It's in the memo. So without further ado,
I'm just happy to see another lefty. You know.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'm Ellie Muncie, Planner 1. So I'll be presenting to you on historic sheds. At a previous Planning Commission meeting, an architect brought up during public comment concerns about the various sheds and secondary structures in the historic district, with some of them not being well maintained and in danger of collapse. And staff followed this up by surveying all of these sheds and creating a map where we found 99 structures, 11 of which were poorly maintained and 2 of which were not maintained and in danger of collapse. So you can see this map on the screen up here, and if you open up the legend, you can see the green indicates well maintained, yellow indicates maintained, orange is poorly maintained, and the red is not maintained, with the blue diamonds indicating locally landmarked properties. And clicking on the property, it brings up information about it. So you can see the address, the type of structure, the condition, a short condition description, and then the architectural inventory form or cultural resource survey for that property, as well as whether or not the property was locally landmarked. And I just added today whether or not they have a short-term rental license. And then there are also photos of the structure.
Hey, so green is well maintained, blue is okay, and red is not.
So green is maintained, yellow is maintained, orange is poorly maintained, and then red is not maintained. The blue is locally landmarked structures.
Okay.
Do you mind taking a second to explain the locally landmarked?
Yeah. So further down in the memo, it talks about how current town code only requires property owners to stabilize historic structures on locally landmarked properties. So this was a good way to quickly look at the map and see how the structures on locally landmarked properties are doing. So you can see that most of them are either well maintained or maintained, with our poorly maintained and not maintained structures located on non-landmarked properties.
I think the thing I might add to that, Jay, is that we typically saw well-maintained sheds on our landmark properties because they're usually in 2 categories. One is someone has gone through the landmarking process where they got like free basement density in exchange for a full restoration. So they typically have put the effort into restoring the property, including the secondary structures. So, and if it's not that situation, it's probably because the town landmarked it. It's a property we own that's historic. And we do a pretty good job of maintaining them as well. So what we found and we wanted to see, because that's one of the issues that's brought up in the memo is, is the landmarking is definitely helping with that situation. Those aren't the properties that we've had issues with, something in imminent stage of collapse, etc.
So staff has worked with Breck History to discuss Breck History potentially assisting with the structures that are considered poorly maintained or not maintained. And this could include technical advice or possible grant funding administered by Breck History. And then staff is also supportive of an outside nonprofit and creating, potentially establishing a grant program to entice property owners to stabilize and repair these secondary structures, which would likely need to be funded by the town. Staff is open to exploring outside funding, but we do not have a high level of confidence that much would be available. As far as our current town code only covering properties that are landmarked, one way to help preserve these poorly maintained and not maintained structures could be extending this to all historic properties in requiring stabilization, which is typically referred to as demolition by neglect, and would require property owners to maintain any historic structure or resource on their property to a point that it's structurally sound and not in danger of collapse.
Thanks, Ellie.
Right now, if it was a landmark property, we could contact the owner based on our code and say, you are required by our code to bring this up to, to stabilize it to a point where it's not in danger of collapsing. We don't have that same luxury with the other properties. I'm just kind of expanding on what Ellie just said. So one way to address that would be to expand that to all historic properties. And Ellie did some research to find that, a number of other jurisdictions have done that. They're not just addressing landmark properties with that requirement. They're addressing all historic.
Is it a special skill set to be able to restore a historical building up to a kind of a stabilized reality?
Yes, to a certain extent, but not as specialized a skill set as when you're getting down into the details of interior or siding and stuff like that.
What we would ask them to do if we could landmark this deal is just get it stabilized to a point where it's not going to collapse.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think that's the main goal rather than obviously asking for a full restoration, because obviously that's a lot more expensive also.
Mark or Ellie, can you talk about the sheds themselves, because they vary quite significantly, right? From a small outhouse footprint to something that could be a garage, right?
Yeah, so I tried to cover all historic secondary structures, which is really just a better general term. I organized it into sheds, cabins, outhouses, and barns was kind of the four main categories I worked off of. But even then, there's still kind of general categories, and some can fit into more than one. But it was definitely working off of the cultural resource surveys to see kind of what they'd said about those structures.
Mark, remind me what our regulations are around moving these days.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, they can move it a small distance on a property, and they might get negative points if we move it a certain distance further. We don't want those to be moved off-site to another location, with the exception sometimes they've already been moved from one property to another, and then it's less important. Yeah.
Other questions?
Well, aren't we deciding if we want to kind of deputize them to kind of tighten the rules on sheds that aren't in historic on landmark? Is that the question?
Thought it was. Do we want to have a work session?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. two questions, I
Yeah.
believe.
It's would the council support pursuing the creation of a town-funded grant program facilitated by Breckenridge History to continue to maintain historic sheds and secondary structures? Council be interested in a work session on the demolition by neglect code to broaden that.
Yeah, so I have a question about the cost.
Yeah.
I mean, without knowing a ballpark what we're talking, I feel like that's a tough decision.
Yeah, and so I guess we're just asking if you guys have an interest, given that we would come back with more details on what those costs are. We haven't had a chance to detail those. I don't think we're talking, 50, 100,000 for a building. Stabilizing it, my guess is going to be more 10,000, 20,000 like that, or maybe even less, depending on the situation. But we can get you more detailed information on that. The other thing I'll let you know is Larissa has already reached out to the two owners of those properties in the biggest state of disrepair, and they've indicated yes, they would love to get some assistance from the town to work through preserving those structures.
Did the other communities have, the ones who've done demolition by neglect and beyond just the landmarked properties, did those have grant opportunities, or did they just tell the property owners that they couldn't demo by neglect?
That wasn't something specifically that I looked into, so I'm not 100% sure. There may have been one or two something beyond their demolition by neglect code, because I do remember adding something into my research, but I don't know off the top of my head.
I guess we're just looking for some initial feedback on, do you want us to pursue this some more? There's really two pieces. One is probably fairly soon we'd want to move with the two that are in the worst shape, and then maybe we could set up some type of, if you were agreeable to it, like Breck History already has a capital account, right? That, we'll put money in towards Milne improvements or Jesse Mill or some of these projects. Maybe there's another piece of that capital that goes on an annual basis towards, maybe next year we would do 3 or reach out for 3 historic sheds, and the following another 3 or something like that. Within 3 or 4 years, we could have hit the first 12 on the list or so. So something like that might be an approach.
I think on the secondary structures, they contribute so much to the character of our area. I think it's something we want to maintain. Putting public dollars onto private property in that way, I'd like to understand how much it would be, vet that a little more. What's interesting in that you mentioned Larissa talked to the 2 homeowners that had those structures that were close to collapsing. And it seems like a lot of it is a education issue. So a combination of really outreach, education, and finding a way to lend technical support on stabilization. So I think I'm not completely against a grant program, but I'd like to go that route first. But I would be supportive of a demolition by neglect ordinance.
Is there any sort of precedent for making the restoration compulsory at the owner's expense?
Well, if we go to the extent that Carol just mentioned with the demolition by neglect, where it applied to all historic properties, and that would be on them.
Yeah, that's what I
to at
thought.
least stabilize it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
A historic shed falling down or being in neglected disrepair be different than, I mean, like in any neighborhood, you have to maintain the paint on your house, or, I mean, I guess I'm not really clear why we would be giving grant dollars for something like this.
Yeah, well, it's not a habitable space typically what these are. So I don't think the bar is quite as high in terms of their requirements to maintain it.
Okay.
I think without incentive, does the property owner allow the structure to simply fall over, and thus, if they are to do work, they no longer, like the cost to move a shed or to lift it up to put a foundation can be high. And so just allowing it to fall over may be in the home property owner's best interest. And so that's why I think that like ownership in the historic district really does carry increased responsibilities than ownership in outside of the historic district, and the code treats the property owners differently than in other areas as well. And I think that we already treat with the code what can be done to historic houses, whether it's windows or doors or sidings. And so I just I think the question that I was asking myself is, should the property owner be bound to improvements that they don't want to do? Like if they want to do improvements, they're held to this standard that's very, very unique to any other part of the town. And so when it comes to improvements that they don't want to do, is that is that too much government leaning, or is it too much of a burden on the property owner? But I do I think that to both your points is that it is a responsibility of a property owner. If we were to do a grant program, I'd want it to be minimalist, like of up to $5,000 or $10,000 or something small, because I do think it's hard if that was something we were looking at, and not to pay for labor or even cover the whole cost. Like I think it should be a very minimal incentive. And then of course, where I lean in heavily is, what is the enforcement? What if the property owner says no? I'm not gonna fix this shed that's toppling over. I guess that's a Kirsten question of what kind of teeth do we have if this moves forward? Is it enforceable? And can we, is there a way that is compulsory and that is feasible and has a path? So those are some of my thoughts on that.
And for me, Jay, it's all around scope. And the scope that I would like, I'm in full support of both, but with limited scope. And the scope to me would be stabilization. And then hopefully with some help, and I forget who said it, but education and supplying resources to the homeowners is huge. So really trying to put together a resource package of what contractors have successfully done this, and what are some of the techniques that we found to be successful in other work. And but for me, the scope, I think we very much need to do this, because I do think it probably in some owners' eyes would benefit them to let a shed just collapse. I don't think in our eyes we would see it the same way, and it's just around scope, just to prevent that from happening, just to stabilize the structure. I'm sure we can figure out how to word that.
Is there any property value benefit by having a historical structure? I mean, like, a kind of a house, kind of a historic outhouse, would that increase the value, or is it burdensome?
It adds charm, and it certainly, anything that's well maintained adds value, right? And then there's also costs there too. But I mean, to me, it's about the overall fabric of the downtown core, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as an enticement for the homeowners, could we honestly say, well, if you fix this up, it could jerk up the price a little bit when on resale? No.
I don't know that I would lean into that. I mean, I think it's
yeah. Okay.
Overall, the downtown core has a lot of these preserved sheds, and the overall downtown core property values are sustained, and I agree with certainly Carol. I think your perspective, and Jay as well, on that it is important to the fabric of the kind of that historic district. Love the idea of a demolition by neglect code to make sure we preserve those, and then limited grants if we go that route to help folks, just give them guidance and make sure we don't lose any of these.
Anything else?
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you.
Okay, Firewise Development Code discussion. This is Cliff.
Evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Hope you all are having a good evening. So tonight, we are going to continue that discussion around defensible space. Specifically, these code amendments. We have 3 different changes that we'll be discussing tonight. Most of these changes did come out of multiple work sessions with our Planning Commission. Over those work sessions, they asked staff to more or less realign our defensible space code to the Firewise standards that some of our community partners are using. Examples of like red, white, and blue, as well as other municipalities within Summit County. So I guess just to preface, the code changes themselves make no procedural changes to when either one policy 48 or policy 22 are enacted. So for new construction and major remodels, policy 22 is enacted, and that's when defensible space is required to be implemented. To quickly go over the 3 changes, aligning with Firewise standards, the first one is actually going to create a new zone from our existing measurements that is going to be the immediate zone, the 0 to 5 feet away from the structure. This does include decks, porches, other attachments to that structure, but kind of provides a last defense for those structures. The second one is going to be kind of reorganizing the rest of our zones. So that's then going to assess the distance measurements as well as the title to the intermediate zone, as well as extended 1 and extended 2. And then the last one is actually something a little bit new. It's creating a map that helps delineate downtown core versus other parts of town. As you have just kind of finished up discussing, our downtown core is very important to us, hosting a lot of historic buildings as well as mature tree canopy. Historically, early settlers here, were able to put cottonwoods along the Blue River, and those have become, a pretty much staple, especially across from the post office. Those large trees on Ridge Streets are all examples of cottonwoods. So the last kind of aspect is this is definitely a continuing conversation for both, Planning Commission, Town Council, as well as all staff and community partners. Previously, there were some work sessions that discussed kind of aligning this our defensible space standards to the Firewise standards. So we believe that this is that first step and will continue to be discussed in the future as we continue to kind of refine this and protect all of our, many assets as well as amazing community. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns.
Thanks, Cliff.
But someone that wants, an existing home that wants to have their property evaluated, what's the best way to go about that?
So red, white, and blue, Matt Benedict is definitely the best person to contact. Him and his team will actually come out to the property and perform an assessment using kind of the standards that we're hoping to amend to. They will then provide that property owner with an assessment and a score. They could then come to the community development office to get a Class D minor permit if they are within the town's jurisdiction to then remove those trees.
Would they remove the trees, or you'd contract with someone to remove the trees?
They can remove them themselves, or contract with a company. We have many very skilled removal companies within Summit.
And I'm just going to play devil's advocate because someone asked me this exact question. If someone calls them, has them come to their home and has them evaluated, are they required then to follow their recommendations? Or can they say, okay, this makes sense, this one doesn't make sense, I'm going to do, this is what you said, but I'm going to ignore this suggestion?
definitely the assessment from Matt is going to be, the full scope. This is exactly what the fire department would want to see. There is no requirement for them to implement those recommendations. There's even times that some of the recommendations from Red, White, and Blue hasn't more or less settled with staff very well, and maintaining, our priority of buffering and screening and keeping that mature tree canopy.
So in a nutshell, it's good advice. It's in a perfect world, it should be followed, but there's no requirement if someone says they just have a favorite tree and they just don't want to mess with it.
You are correct.
Thanks.
The only time that defensible space is required is for new construction and then any major remodels, which we define as 10% or more.
Jeffrey, I've had them come out twice now, I think, in the last 20 years, and yeah, they're fantastic.
Oh yeah, I'm
Very
sure.
Practical approach.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Matt's awesome.
Jay's awesome too.
So is Jay.
Jay's good too. Jay, are you in favor of all of these changes?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please do.
So as Cliff stated, this is an ongoing conversation, and I think it needs to continue to be ongoing. The science, we're constantly learning more as we have these large catastrophic fires. And we're learning a lot about the embers. And it's that ember front that is way ahead of even a fire coming through a community. That's really the trigger. And those embers, that's that new, the new 0 to 5 foot zone is really driven about that ember shower. And so, yes, we are in favor of continuing to work with staff as we adopt new codes, ensuring that we're not forgetting about the planning department as well as we do fire and building codes, and ensuring that we're aligning all pieces and parts of this moving forward.
All right. Thanks.
There were a couple recommendations that were put forth that I wanted to kind of vet with you, with both of you, if that was all right. One of which was wildflowers and native grasses shall be cut to under 6 inches in the fall. And there was a desire, or at least a suggestion, to change that to when irrigation is turned off, because fall can be a little ambiguous, whether it's September, October, November, whatever it might be. And just curious if that's something that you'd be in favor of.
Staff would be acceptable to that amendment. Just being able to clarify that language will help our community.
Thank you. There was the second one was that this is an addition, that no mulch should touch any part of the structure, including posts, stair stringers, siding, trim, or any other architectural element, and that there should always be a non-combustible horizontal layer between the house and any natural materials. And this is, in most cases, a rock drip line.
So definitely within that 0 to 5 feet, we already want to remove combustible materials, mulches, etc. The only times that we would allow instances like that is when it is in an irrigated bed. So it is kind of playing on that kind of gray area of which way to actually lean. A majority of the time in the highlands, a lot of the properties are able to push out some of their landscape beds further than that 5 feet. In our conservation district, that's not always possible. So staff is leaving that one in, basically allowing the flexibility on a case-by-case basis to determine what's best for the property.
You know, again, I think it's this continued conversation that we need to have that is very much part of Firewise in looking at where this occurs, how this happens. One of the recommendations in correspondence back and forth with Cliff was in the downtown corridor, why don't we use the fire station as an example of what this could look like? So that everybody has an idea of what it is, and it doesn't come to the many terms of mitigation of everybody thinking everything's cleared. And so trying to paint that picture and then allowing council and staff to have an opportunity to look at that to see how we may redefine that in the future.
And just going back to that one, I guess the most important part of that was that no mulch should touch any part of the structure. You know, mulch by its definition is dried up, is kindling. And so just curious if it is not irrigated, then is the mulch, according to you, the changes that you're putting forth, allowed to be next to the building or touching the building?
It would not be allowed within 5 feet. Mulch would only be allowed in the irrigated beds, as you specified.
And then the last one was language prohibiting junipers within 50 feet of the structure, knowing that junipers are known to be flammable, and if that was something that would be able to be added.
That's definitely a comment that came in as we've been kind of discussing this. I do not know exactly what we would do, but I believe that we would be amendable to that, just considering some of the feedback that we've received from landscape architects as well as Red, White, and Blue. Even our own open space and trails have discussed it with us a little bit. So we'll do a little bit more research on it and then bring that at the next session.
Fantastic. Thanks for being so open to that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, guys.
Any other questions, comments?
Make sure you have the batteries of your smoke detectors fresh.
Check them.
And to answer your question for that mitigation inspection, if you email mitigation at rwbfire.org, that's the best way to set up that inspection.
Cool. I will. I'll do that. I'll tell my buddy to.
Yeah, the guys at Red, White, and Blue are exceptional and very helpful and kind about all your little favorite trees and things like that. So
I've slid down the pole.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Thank you very much. Thanks, Jay, very much for coming. Buells in the Conservation District. Mark. Real glutton for punishment today.
This is fun. We don't have BGV for once.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so my memo outlines some of the issues. Essentially, you know, as a result, I think primarily of when we relaxed our rules with COVID, we saw a few of these, we call them temporary structures popping up in the downtown to provide for, you know, some comfort level for obviously there's a benefit there for, you know, the customers not, you know, having the cold air coming in, etc. They're technically, we define them as temporary structures, and they're not allowed in the conservation district. The only exceptions are like for really short duration events, things like that, where we'll let someone put up a tent for several days. But they're not allowed in the conservation district. So that's kind of the situation we're in, is like, okay, should we go out and start actively enforcing to remove these? But as we started to think about it, we also wanted to recognize that there was potentially some sustainability benefits of allowing for these in certain situations. And so I'll just go through briefly some of the highlights of my memo, and then I'm really looking forward to hearing your guys' comments on this. Basically, our handbook of design standards, which is basically our, you know, guidance for the historic district, would not want to see these permanently added onto a historic structure. I put some policies in here. It would be altering the appearance of that historic structure permanently from what it was historically. But then there's a question of whether something temporary might be okay with on a historic property. And in that situation, the one reason staff throws that out there is because it's still reversible. in terms of, and that's one of our policies that I put in here is like, if you put a temporary, canvased entranceway there, you still can take that off, and probably you will take that off in the summertime. But you could at any time remove that, and the historic fabric is still there intact and visible to be seen. So that's one of the questions we kind of wanted to take a look at with the council, if they had any interest in pursuing that. As well, then we looked at new development and on non-historic structures. And when you look at that, the core commercial area, which is just the 100 blocks south, so from Ski Hill, Lincoln, down Main Street to Washington, is, and then it also, the core commercial area also includes that block between Main Street and Ridge on Lincoln. The whole goal is to have properties that are right up to the sidewalk, right to their property line. And so there's no room to put a vestibule in those type of situations. So we don't think it could be allowed in those situations. But outside of that core commercial area, there's nothing in the code, in the design standards, that we could find that really conflicted directly with adding on to a non-historic property, some type of little addition out there. Provided, of course, you have density, which I'll talk about in a minute. And in fact, there's in the South Main transition character area, which covers the last couple blocks of South Main Street and Ridge Street, that talks about the character of windows, doors, and architecture details generally are not as critical. So there's kind of a more leniency in those areas. So the second question we're looking for to get some feedback on then is, does the council agree with that? And what are the council's thoughts on allowing, and then beyond that, allowing on temporary exterior vestibules on non-historic buildings? So there's the idea of the temporary structure on a historic, temporary on a non-historic. We think if it's a non-historic, for the most part, you could add on a permanent type of addition in the front, with the exception of density. As I mentioned a minute ago, the issue with the density is that a lot of these buildings are already maxed out on density. Now, we could just say, and I think we heard a little bit this from the Planning Commission, that, well, they should just put the vestibule on the inside of their space and their interior, which you can certainly do. But what that does, obviously, is it takes away square footage that they're using for, the restaurant's using for seating customers, et cetera. And so the next question is does the council think there's any merit in or agree that allowing some waiver from density would be appropriate, if you think that it's appropriate to do these vestibules in certain situations?
The motivation for most of these, is it heat, utility costs, comfort?
I think it's probably more comfort, but certainly utility cost is another.
I mean, if it's comfort, then utility costs will play into it. I mean, if they're okay.
Yep. And then, so we talk about that, Jeffrey, kind of following up on your point there. We talked with sustainability staff. Teddy did a little bit of research. I mean, staff generally agreed that, yeah, it makes sense that you will see some savings of energy. But they couldn't find any studies or anything to really substantiate that, or,
anecdotally,
what that might be. But anecdotally, it seems like, yes, you would, that by having some type of vestibule, either on the interior or on the exterior. And then the other option we just threw out here, because we heard a little bit about this, and I know Aspen encourages folks to do this, is an air curtain. I wasn't very familiar with them, but they basically place it up above the doorway. It sends it fans down air and creates that barrier between the cold and the hot space. A couple of the issues we did hear when we talk to some local business owners was in some cases, they may not be easy to implement just because of their particular building situation. Also that they tend to be noisy. They try, it impacts people that are right near them. And then there's also an energy component in terms of, there's a sustainability issue associated with those. So whether they're a good option or not, I don't know. I don't pretend to know enough about that, but they are an option. And I do know that Aspen encourages people to consider those. We did take this to the Planning Commission back in December. Planning Commission kind of agreed with what I just mentioned on air curtains. They thought they were noisy and energy consumptive. They also they had some general concerns about, as you would expect the Planning Commission to do in terms of the aesthetics of adding on something that's not historic in the district. What do those look like, and kind of altering the character of the historic district, the visual character. So that was generally their concerns. As a result of that, they were pretty much not supportive of either temporary or the temporary or permanent additions on for vestibules in terms of given density or any of that type of stuff, with the exception they recognize they could probably be allowed for a property that was non-historic if it was a permanent addition of sorts. So I've got a list of questions here for council, maybe answer any questions you have, and then we could maybe go through those.
Sounds great. Okay. Any questions for Mark?
Mark, how difficult would it be? I mean, I'm looking at these two examples, and it seems to me the one on the right blends into the building quite well. The one on the left, not well at all, in my opinion. Is would there be any? How hard would it be for you guys to craft an ordinance that required that a temporary vestibule like this somehow works with the building?
Yeah, it's a little difficult. That particular situation at Legends, I think why it works partly is because it's kind of a recess entryway. Right. And so they're able to just kind of fill in that space with that. Whereas in most situations, what you have is it's popped out in front of the building. And so, I mean, we could certainly talk about that type of scenario in a code, in a code change if we want to do that, Dick. There's probably not a lot of situations where that's going to come into play. That's kind of, we don't see that super commonly. A few places we do.
Good.
Any other questions, Jeffrey?
No, I guess, but isn't there too, like, there's some people that don't have the density to do it, so they can't do it. Well, I guess one of these questions is, would we allow extra density for the sustainability aspect of it?
Yeah.
But are there many people that have the density that could do it, or is that kind of few and far between?
I think most people probably don't. My guess is most of these structures on the small lots in the historic district are at or over density. Yeah.
Mark, do you see this being exclusive to restaurants, or would you open it to retail? If it was to approve, like, is that, do you see this being a restaurant?
I don't know if it just has to be, Jay. We've got the opposite problem with the retails where they want their door open, and so people will walk in, they make sure to invite them in, and they know that their customers generally keep their jacket on when they come in, so the comfort thing is not as important of an issue. So I don't know if any retail would be inclined to do it, but from our perspective, from a sustainability thing, if that's something we wanted to go, I don't think it would matter one way or the other.
My question is more of like, I think as we discuss this and contemplate it, the curiosity is how many of these temporary structures, if they were allowed, would there be in this district, in the conservation district? And so I'm curious, like, between you know, the zero lot lines where the front door is on a public right of way, a sidewalk, you know, taking those out. How many of these, if everyone took advantage of it, would we see that have a setback, have the room to put a 36 square foot vestibule or whatever on top? Are we talking about a dozen? Are we talking about 150 or
somewhere in between, I would guess, Jay. There's, you know, once you get outside of that 100 block, you know, in the 100 block of Ridge, a lot of the properties have front yard space. You know, you think down towards Rootstock, areas like that have, you know, front yards. So I think a lot of them could accommodate them once you get out of the very core of that 100 block.
And we would never contemplate having them have any sort of vestibule on an egress on public lands, like a sidewalk, right?
No,
that's not even a question. Okay.
Couldn't do that.
No. I'm ready to answer some questions.
You want to
jump in?
Yeah.
Or should we go to Mark's questions?
Yeah. Well, sorry, that's where we were going. I think next was the.
Like before you go to that, just for whatever it's worth, you know, our restaurant had a vestibule after come COVID, you know, 2020, and for 2.5 years after that. And so, just out of curiosity, I did go back through all of our gas usage. We're forced air, so natural gas, and kind of documented the decatherms, which is what the metric on what was used pre vestibule and then what was used post vestibule. And it really, to what Mark said, it was very inconclusive. We had 7 of the 16 months were higher than average before the vestibule. If you took the average for the 5 years that, you know, the 2.5 years prior, the 2.5 years after, and 9 of the 18 months were lower than average after the vestibule. So it was a flip of the coin. Now, as Mark put, you know, when we spoke about this, is that doesn't take an effect of if we had colder temps than normal or warmer temps than normal month to month. But it was really interesting kind of plotting all that and throwing that into an Excel sheet that you would think that it would have a substantial effect, but at least in one case, it was a flip of a coin.
Let me ask you this. Do you think the user experience of your clients closer to the door was enhanced with the vestibule, more comfortable dining experience?
Without a doubt. But I think I wanted to just kind of point to the sustainability question.
Yeah.
I think we can. I didn't want sustainability and maybe the notion that this was a silver bullet to cloud the judgment of what's of this questions.
Thanks for that, Jay. I do think that something that stuck with me from the Planning Commission notes was just how they said we spend all this time determining every, you know, type of siding, type of shape of door, shape of window, everything. And then they said, you know, pretty tough to see the temporary vestibules throughout the historic district. And I tend to agree with that, as it's impactful in the historic district to
But you know, we're only talking, if we made it temporary, we're only talking about 4 months. December, June, you know,
it's a little bit of a misnomer. Yeah, because first of all, it's 10. But also the interesting thing about temporary too is, like, Jay, wasn't yours up year round?
Once a year.
Yeah. So temporary just means not architecturally in place. It doesn't necessarily mean they're putting it up for the winter and taking it. We could require.
Right.
Yeah.
Mark, maybe I don't fully understand that to Kelly's point, but within the vestibules, do you think there's enough that we could regulate it aesthetically so it blends? Is there a way to codify that?
With the temporary ones, I think it's going to be difficult. I mean, we can certainly quantify the size to limit that. You know, we could, to your point, limit the amount of time it can be up, that it needs to come down in late April or whatever it is and go up in November. And maybe we can get into materials and colors a little bit, but it's still going to be hard to totally quantify, you know, good aesthetics on these things. Yeah.
All right. Are we ready for the questions then? Okay. Todd, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, I'll jump off. I think I lean more like a purist in this on all these questions, and I'm in lockstep with the Planning Commission, quite frankly, on all these. So I am not in support of temporary vestibules on historic structures. I agree that if it's permanent, that it could be allowed on non-historic structures, but I'd certainly want to see some design guidelines tied into exactly what you brought up, Kelly, right? Like we spend all this energy on like every little nuance and detail, and then there's a plastic vestibule covering all of this. And then, yeah, not in support of temporary vestibules on non-historic structures, and definitely not in support of waiving density requirements. So yeah, that's where I sit.
Thank you. Dick?
Yeah, I guess I'm not in support of temporary vestibules on historic structures. Again, it goes back to the additional responsibility when you buy a historic structure. I am in support of temporary or permanent, if they have the density, exterior vestibules on non-historic buildings. Yeah, obviously with the exception of the core, because there's nowhere to put them. I am in favor of temporary exterior vestibules on non-historic buildings. I just, it really makes a difference in the experience of the guest, and I really think we have to pay attention to that. I'm not in favor of waiving density, and I do think, to Carol's point, we want to do our best to specify materials and colors and whatever you guys, whatever magic you can work in writing this code to try to have it match and have the aesthetics as good as possible. I think we need to prohibit, well, if there's any signage or lettering on these structures, it needs to comply with the sign code and the master sign plan that's in place for that building. And I would prohibit any seating in these areas. We are seeing, I think in the left-hand side, you see a covered porch that's been enclosed for winter seating. I am not in favor of that. And we've seen it's creeped up around town and a few other places too, and I'm certainly not in favor of that. So, yeah, those are my comments.
Jeffrey?
I think I might be going to a knife fight with the Q-tips. I'm kind of in the minority. I think that I think for 4 or 5 months, temporary structure on a historical structure is okay if there's no seating, if it's as small as possible, and if it's just to increase the comfort of the guests. But I think I'm going to lose that battle. And there again, I realize that that's kind of a signature feature is historical structures, but I also think our mission is to make it a comfortable experience for the people that spend money to come here. On non-historical structures, if they have the density, I think it's fine. I wouldn't give them density, but again, I don't think we should have. There shouldn't be seating in there. And I think we could make it temporary, that they have to take it down in the summertime when there is a lot of foot traffic, and and I think that might work. I don't know, and I don't know how difficult that would be, but I do think I know Jay did the research. I just can't see how it could help, but lower your energy costs. Waiving density, no waiving density, and I've made my comments.
Carol?
I'm with Jeffrey.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll join.
Well, that's three of us. You, me, baby, makes three.
Oh, there we go. Bonus vote. So yeah, I think the fact that they are temporary and the fact they're not permanently altering any of our historic structures. And I think it's important for me that it's temporary in the sense of just allowed certain months of the year. That's another requirement to consider it. And I do think that we can codify size, no seating, colors, a way to blend it in where it isn't as visually impactful. For permanent or non-historic buildings, if they have the density, sure, they can construct the permanently constructed exterior vestibules, but however we're treating historic structures with temporary vestibules, we should treat non-historic within the core the exact same way, I think. No, I wouldn't waive density. And I think that was all the questions.
Jay.
Thank you. Temporary vestibules on historic structures during winter months. I see this a little bit different in that, especially just from firsthand experience, these temporary vestibules, they come with these lag bolts that are like 24 inches and that go into the in the facade of the historic structure. And then just to think about those being drilled in and taken out twice a year or once a year, whatever, I guess put in once a year, taken out once a year, year in, year out. And then just, again, just from experience of like seeing the fading that happens on the difference from where the vestibule is and then when it isn't, as you put it on and take it off, that I really don't think that this is the correct thing for historic structures, just because of the damage and the fading and what happens with the adherence of the temporary structures. For that reason, I would not be in favor of using temporary vestibules on historic structures during the winter months. Staff's interpretation that permanently constructed exterior vestibules can be permitted on new or existing non-historic buildings. Yeah, and I guess I was a little confused with that question, just because I think currently a building owner can pull a permit, like a D minor or a D major, to erect a structure if they have density and they have setbacks and whatever. So I think that should be continued if I'm reading that right. Does council believe that temporary exterior vestibules on non-historic buildings are appropriate? And I think this is the crux of the whole discussion, is on the non-historic buildings. And this is one of the things that we've been discussing and that, Mark, you've been dealing with. COVID did change a lot of things for a lot of people. And this is one of those things that people were able to use, restaurants such as mine did, and it was extremely beneficial. I think about what the impact of that throughout town is and how that is monitored, enforced, how color and materials and when it's up and when it's down. And I think that these priority design standards that we have in place are in place for a reason, and that that COVID didn't change that. And so I am not in favor of temporary exterior vestibules on non-historic buildings. I'll be the one outlier on waiving density requirements for exterior vestibules. Not saying that they should be waived, but maybe providing a path to on these buildings that are maxed out to be able to get that 36 square feet of additional density that they're not allowed to have, to create an exterior vestibule that matches the building, that has the siding that looks like that it is a permanent structure and it does belong. And maybe that path is through paying into a housing fund or buying a 1/100th of a TDR or whatever it might be, just or I don't know what percentage that would be, but I think that would be interesting to providing a path to additional density that would facilitate the appearance that we're looking for with the sustainability aspect, the comfort aspect, and that. So
I'll amend my comment to, I'm okay with looking for a path
For the maximum size.
for the density, yeah.
All right. I am for question 1, use of temporary vestibules on historic structures, and no. Jay covered that really well, I think. Also, I just know that we keep chipping away at the historic district, and I want to be able to hold that up as much as we can. The second question, I believe I'm with Jay. I understand this to just mean that there's a small addition, and that's fine with me. As long as that's the way it is existing, that should be maintained. Temporary exterior vestibules on non-historic. I do not think that we should have those. All the planning commission work, it feels like, is for naught if we've got that up for our 10 months of winter. And then I'm okay with a path if there's a maximum size, and then they're held to the, architectural standards that we currently have. I think that makes a ton of sense. All right, any final comments?
So a couple questions for you guys. On the path, we have 3 of you okay with the path on density and 3 of you not. Is there any?
Carol's worth 2 though, so she's.
It is true.
You, so I don't know.
You win some, you lose some.
Wondering if there's any flexibility on either side for folks to have ComDev.
Yeah, I'd be happy to explore a path.
Okay.
And that's 2, so
yeah, we're waiting.
And then on the on the third question of temporary exterior vestibules on non-historic buildings, you are again 3-3 on that.
And I think my point, which might change it, I think both historic and non-historic should be treated the same. So if we lose on historic, I'm then a no on non-historic.
Okay.
Interesting.
Tricky.
So if that changes your vote, then I think
4 no.
So as we are on the historic structure question.
Do I need to change my opinion at all?
No, don't change it.
Good.
We'd like to avoid is bringing a code amendment back where you end up 3-3 on something, and if we can avoid that, that would be great. Okay. Mark, does that help?
Yeah, we'll take a look. Given that we're not looking at temporary structures in either scenario, I'm not sure what we need to do with the code. To several of your points, if it's a permanent addition, they can already do that. So
it was the waiving of density, but the pathway.
The pathway for the density. Because right now, we don't allow density to be transferred into the historic district.
Mm-hmm.
So we could certainly write an exception in for that. And you're talking about a small amount of density in most of these situations, like you said, 36 square feet or whatever. So,
would that create any challenges? Like I've heard of a case where someone wanted to add some density for some housing space, or to turn like a shed into some housing. Would that create any precedent with like kind of that forgiveness of adding density? Do we have any challenges there?
I think we could address that situation, make sure it's like, to several of your points, for seating, it's specifically just for that comfort situation.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And then we'll work on enforcement of what is not allowed in code at the moment.
All the existing areas. Okay.
We'll be reaching out to the folks that do have these and tell them they're going to have to remove them. Yep.
Thank you. All right. We have an executive session. Should I read this now?
It's in an open session. It's
Okay.
a motion.
All right. I move that the town council go into executive session CRS 246402-4E for the purposes of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategies for negotiations, and or instructing negotiators concerning property the town may be interested in acquiring for open space purposes.
Second.
All right.
I can take it. Pro Tem Owens.
Yes.
Councilman Beckerman.
Yes.
Councilman Bergeron.
Yes.
Councilman Carlton.
Yes.
Councilman Rankin.
Yes.
Yes. Just waiting for the
Doors to close. Okay.
Order, yes.
Move the COLA.
That shirt's really warm. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we're good. All right. The time is now 6:25. The executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Ann Lowe, Scott Reed, Shannon Haynes, Kirsten Crawford, Mark Truckee, all members of council, except for the former mayor Mamula. The town council has discussed in executive session whether to direct the manager to negotiate the acquisition of property for open space purposes under certain parameters, which are confidential for the purposes of negotiations. For the sake of transparency, any final decisions as to whether to enter into and execute a final agreement on the acquisition of property is the authority of the manager. Great. Done. All right. This concludes the work session.
Where are we dining? Hey, Ellen.
Now we have to eat so that staff
Now
can
we
eat.
have
Well, just so the staff can eat. I feel really bad when
Yeah, I do.
leave them to It was weird. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome. I'm going to call this town council regular meeting to session January 9th. Roll call.
Dick Carlton. Here. Jeffrey Bergeron.
Here.
Carol Sade. Here. Jay Beckerman.
Present.
Todd Rankin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kelly Owens.
Here. I was wondering if she had to call Eric. All right. We'll start with the approval of the meeting minutes for December 12th, a month ago. Okay. We do a motion on that, or it's just approved? Just approved. Okay, great. No changes? Approved. Approval of the agenda. Shannon, do we have?
No changes.
Okay. This is the time for communications to council. This is public comment, non-agenda items only. You'll have a 3-minute time limit, please. You can come up to the lectern and go ahead and speak.
I'm sorry. I was talking to both of you. All right, sorry. Been a while, guys. Okay, hi. I'm Abby Brown with Woodwinds Property Management and Lodging, but I'm also here as a board member for Summit Alliance Vacation Rental Managers. We are here to address Bill C. That's at the state right now. Other board members are also going to Frisco. We talked to the BOCC this morning. We'll be also going to Silverthorne and Dillon at their next meetings. So, did you know that the entire state of Colorado is 21,000 short-term vacation rentals, and that Summit County represents almost half that number with 10,000? Summit County makes up almost half the vacation rentals in the entire state. Those rentals bring local sales tax revenues, lodging tax revenues, and profits for local restaurants, shops, and many other businesses. Bill C is being proposed at the state by Senator Hansen, and it's aiming a direct shot at our community. It's a threat to all of us here in Summit County. It proposes to raise property taxes to 27.9% for homeowners who short-term rent their homes more than 90 days per year. 52% of those surveyed across the state say they'll stay below that 90 days, operating only during peak holiday periods in the winter months. That will cut the town tax revenue from the lodging tax almost in half. Of those 10,000 licenses, almost nearly 70% of those homeowners are fellow Coloradans that will be affected by the quadruple increase in property taxes. What this will do to Summit County's tourism-based industry would be nothing short of catastrophic. If passed, will go into effect in 2025, meaning that the number of nights that the property is rented in 2024 will dictate how that home is taxed in 2025. That's now. So over the next couple of months, if this passes, people will stop renting after March once they hit that 90-day mark. Once vacation rentals are reduced, property managers have said that they will be reducing their workforce dramatically to meet the decreased need. We are forecasting a winter-only business model operating from late December through March, and then Summit County would be closed for the rest of the year with a few fillers around July 4th. The BTO has created a year-round economy that would be decimated. This is not a short-term rental problem. This is a business problem that will impact every industry in Summit County. Local businesses like retail, restaurants, housekeeping, appliance repairs, lodging communities will be forced out as early as this summer, unable to cover overhead. Going forward, those that will survive would only have a sustainable business 3 months per year. Most small businesses can't handle that. The very locals we've been fighting to protect will be gone as jobs dry up. This is not an exaggeration. We have the data to support it, and we'll be submitting that to you guys to review over the next few meetings. The only way to improve on Bill C would be to kill it. We're asking for your help by publicly opposing this bill to all of our legislators as a united front representing Summit County. Thanks.
Thank you, Abby.
So my name is David Wilcox. I'm going to put some finer points on what Abby just mentioned. I'm from Summit Mountain Rentals, and my concerns regarding a bill being worked on in the state, it would quadruple property tax for some Summit County homeowners, anyone renting more than 90 nights. The bill started out in committee as Bill 6, was renamed Bill C, and is currently being called the Lodging Property Tax Treatment Bill. It proposes any homeowner who rents short-term more than 90 nights would pay 27.9% property tax starting next year. It's a very scary concept for us in property management in a world-class destination like Breckenridge. A very large majority of properties here in Breckenridge are in the category that rents above 90 nights per year. When surveyed, our friends at Save VRM heard a resounding majority of homeowners state they would rent below that threshold to avoid paying the higher tax. What this means for business is bad news, and as we property managers would be forced to manipulate calendars in such a way that would see all of our annual business forced between late December and the end of March. The rest of the year would be entirely blacked out. Summer business would be destroyed. Did you know the amount of revenue our entire town makes, not just lodging, during the week of 4th of July is on par with what we make during some of the peak winter holidays? We would not have that business anymore. It would be gone. What would happen to shops and restaurants here if they didn't have sustainable business levels for 9 months of the year? Where would the local workers go? What would happen to the year-round economy that we've worked so hard to create? This bill is a tourism economy killer. It will, without a doubt, destroy our mountain economy. I'm not understating that. With Summit County being home to nearly half of all vacation rentals in the state of Colorado, our loss would become the state's loss in a huge way. The 12.275% lodging tax that we have will dry up. Local sales tax will decline. Your town budget could be cut in half. I think that's a generous estimate. A reduction in short-term rentals to this magnitude does not mean more long-term housing. It does not help our local economy. It would devastate business in this community, cost us thousands of year-round jobs, and could result in an economic downturn that would be devastating to Summit County. Unfortunately, we won't need long-term housing because we won't have the workers to fill it. I'm begging of you tonight to please speak up against the lodging tax treatment bill in your meetings with CAST at your mayor and managers meetings with our county commissioners and our state lawmakers. No amendments, no changes, no negotiations. The only acceptable version of this bill would be for it to be gone forever. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
And what's the property tax for a resident right now?
Good evening. My name is Patricia Zanka. I am an owner of property within the town. I am here tonight to complain that the town of Breckenridge, in its senseless wisdom, has decided to cancel the town's participation in the Silver Sneaker Program. The Silver Sneaker Program is part of Medicare, and its purpose is to encourage physical fitness, wellness, activities, and health for seniors. The Carla B. Madison Recreation Center on Colfax and York in Denver, which is owned and operated by the city and county of Denver, provides free access for senior residents of Denver to all their activities and programs. The YMCA in Scottsdale, Arizona participates in the Silver Sneaker Program. The Silverthorne Rec Center accepts Silver Sneakers programs for seniors to use the recreation center and their drop-in classes. I have been told the reason the town of Breckenridge has discontinued its participation with Silver Sneakers is because it's too costly and time-consuming for the billing, and the billing process is actually costing more than what the town's revenue is from the reimbursement from Silver Sneakers. Well, here's a thought. Don't charge seniors. Don't charge me. Nothing. Free. Why? Why do this? Because the town of Breckenridge loves and cares for its seniors. We have workforce housing for those who need that assistance. We have child care assistance for those who need that help as well. I have never participated in those programs because they weren't available to me when I needed them. Workforce housing is necessary, absolutely. Child care assistance is necessary, absolutely. But what about me? Where do I fit in? Where is my assistance? Nothing for seniors? My husband and I have raised our sons here, longtime locals, 26 years in Breck, 42 in the county. And through our taxes, we have funded all of our world-class amenities. The rec center is one of those amenities, and I enjoy it immensely. I personally do not understand why you, town council, would purposefully deny seniors of this community a health and safe environment to maintain our physical and mental well-being. What happened to my beloved Breckenridge? Thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, Patricia.
Hi, my name's Stephen Frommes. I'm a partner at Alpine Edge, and I'm here to represent property managers and the tourism industry in Summit County, along with SAVRM, for the proposed Bill 6, Bill C, whatever we want to call it. And I want to also focus on the point of the commercial tax rate and how commercial properties are taxed in general versus the implication of a commercial lodging tax. I think they're going to amend the current bill, as from what I'm seeing, and Senator Hansen's talking about a more tiered approach based on the number of days rented. But many short-term rental business owners and property managers are petrified by the implications of impending policy change for this Bill C that threatens Colorado tourism. For every $1 spent on short-term rental lodging, $3 are spent within the same community. And if Bill 6 were to come to fruition, it would destroy mountain town economies, including Summit County. Careers are scarce within Summit County, and well-paying salary jobs offered by property managers, along with supporting industries, are critical. They provide essential stability and anchoring many of the residents and their families, allowing them to earn significantly higher income than a typical seasonal job with hourly wages provided by large corporations. If this bill stands as it's written, my company and the supporting industries will be few and far between. That includes accountants, cleaners, hot tub technicians, handymen, and vendors of all trade that maintain a depreciating vacation rental property. If lawmakers run the numbers on most properties that would be affected by this bill, they will see that the profit margins in many instances, especially with larger properties, are exceeded by expenses from this commercial property lodging tax. This would obviously cause current rental properties to stop renting. An example of how Bill 6 will not be on a level playing field with hotels would be the Residence Inn, sold in 2023 for approximately $40 million. Its assessed value was $8.6 million, which equates to about $500,000 in property tax. Commercial property is valued for real estate taxation purposes using three methods. There's the cost method, the market value method, and the capitalization of income that's generated by the property. Commercial property is commonly at a lower value for property tax purposes than it could be sold for based on its income generating capacity and using the income approach of taxation. Bill 6 would value vacation rentals based solely on the market approach, regardless of income generation capacity. And the perceived fairness of reclassifying vacation rentals as a commercial property is an illusion. Hotel properties can sustain lesser values due to the income approach.
Steve, I'm sorry, your time's up.
Thank you guys for your consideration. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Stephen.
And if you want to send us an email with what you were gonna say,
sure,
that would be cool.
Sure, absolutely. That's great. A lot of good
I
arguments.
had trouble following anyway, with numbers and shit and stuff. Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
I have the same problem. Don't feel bad.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Pete Zanka, and I'm a longtime local. Patricia did a lovely job with her little dissertation. That was great. But my point here is that we must take care of our seniors. The money factor, which is minimum, is not the issue. You have people who need that little resort, like it's not resort. You need that little space that you can fill with your friends to enjoy the rec center. And not a lot of people can afford it. And I feel that the town's going in the wrong direction. That is my thought behind here. I have friends. I'm 71, and I have a lot of friends at my age that, the yearly rate, it's a lot of money to them. I am not in that position, but I'm speaking for them. And the mental, just going to the rec center and hanging out and BSing with your friends is part of the deal. And, let's say this person has a stroke and he needs to rehabilitate himself. The rec center is where it's at. And plus he can hang out with his friends. And you're sort of taking that away from us. So that's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please reconsider your situation on this.
Thank you, Pete. Any others? Oh.
Hi, I'm Scott Smith. I own the property in Warriors Market. I'm the president of the HOA. I agree with the previous comments. Senior citizens who might be on Social Security can least afford extra costs, and the Silver Sneakers was developed for this reason by the government to help people. Every gym I've ever talked to accepts the Silver Sneakers program, and Breckenridge is not even a private; it's a public service rec center, and it would be the last one I would think would reject this idea when all the private ones go along with it. And on another topic, all the years I'm in Breck, I'm here the whole, long term,
And we've never had a complaint about short-term rentals. And I see this thing about the restriction of short-term rentals. One of the excuses is there's problems in the neighborhood. I don't know what the police record is on it, but you call the police if you're having a problem. All the years I'm here, never had a problem in our condo complex or anywhere near. I've never seen the police respond to a problem. I think it's a made-up excuse for some reason that people want to restrict the short-term rental, the quota system. Thank you.
My name is Amy Oliveira. I am the executive director at the Children's Advocacy Center, Treetop, located in the basement of the library.
Kind of bend it a little.
Is that better?
Yeah, just bend it. Yeah. There
Okay.
you go.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. As mentioned, I am Amy Oliveira. I'm the executive director at Treetop Child Advocacy Center. I'm here with my family victim advocate, Opa Diskin, and we're here to just reintroduce Treetop to you all and just bring some community awareness. We are a child advocacy center, which is providing a service to children who have been witness to a violent crime, who've been sexually assaulted, who have been neglected in their home, have witnessed domestic violence between mom and dad. We provide a service to our local law enforcement agencies and CPS or DHS. We receive a referral for a forensic interview. What that is a child will come in after they've made a report to a friend or to a nurse or to a therapist who may be a mandated reporter. We receive that referral, and we will provide a forensic interview by a trained interviewer doing a child-led interview to allow a child to speak on their abuse, share what their assault has been, and what Treetop will then do is work with the family and the victim to then follow up with a referral to mental health services, to trauma services, anything in that matter. So we work with the families in that way. We also service under the 5th Judicial District. So we're covering Lake County, Clear Creek, Summit, and Eagle. However, we will never turn down a forensic interview. So if we receive a phone call from Park or Grand County or Jefferson or whichever, honestly, we will never turn down an interview. So I'm here to just share our story. We're a local nonprofit organization, want to bring some more community awareness to who we are. We are here and just trying to get the word out there. So I appreciate your time and thank you. Hopefully I got everything. I had 58 seconds. Sorry. Any questions? Anyway.
Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you, Oba. All right.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. It's Tamara Park with Breck Create. We hope you found a minute to watch our year-end video, which shows the impact of the town's 2023 investment in our year-round programs that served approximately 50,000 people this year. Furthering our values of diversity and inclusion, 5 of 8 of our exhibitions in 2023 were by women, and half were by women of color. And our summer exhibition alone hosted over 10,000 visitors. We leveraged our signature program, Artists in Residence, to serve the educational and childcare needs of the community by providing camps and our first coloring book, which you now have or maybe had to give away. Our ticketing and facilities team supported 167 events in the Riverwalk Center, requiring 212 days of use over the course of the year. We partnered with 27 other community-centered nonprofits, governments, and businesses to further mutual quality of life goals for residents. We collected over 5,000 pounds of plastic waste and eliminated plastic from our event operations. And we are ending our first normal year since 2019 better than expected, minimizing our projected deficit and close to break even. So we raised $600,000 for programming and sold $635,000 worth of tickets and registrations while still offering the community over 50 free events. So this means that every dollar that the town invests in Breck Creates programs are more than doubled. So what to expect from us in 2024? We will continue with our current strategy and provide core programs year-round, and I'm happy to send around that strategy as a reminder. In addition to delivering our relevant and high quality programs and excellent guest experience for all of our facility partners, you will see us continue to emphasize our revenue driving programs in 2024. So for example, our Riverwalk Present series is delivering things to do for those who are already here on the holidays, New Year's Eve, President's Day, Mardi Gras, St. Patrick's Day. We will continue to leverage Breck Create resources to meet the community priorities and needs. For example, in the area of social equity, we have a wonderful exhibition opening later this month called In Plain Sight, which describes queer rural narratives from the water and the land. We plan to build out Hispanic Heritage Month activities to culminate in our annual Dia de Muertos festival and make the Arts District a more welcoming place through our translation efforts. We also value and respect our natural environment, but are currently nearing capacity for our precious plastics program. We are looking at ways that we can shift our programs to process more material, and this is going to likely come from our reserves. I guess my time is up. So if you have any questions, I can send around the rest of the report, and always would love your feedback on anything and everything that we're doing.
Thank you, Tamara. Okay, so thank you very much for all the public comment. I think all the public who's here has actually commented, so I'm assuming we're done. We don't usually reply to public comment in the meeting, but the staff definitely has heard and council has heard your comments, and we will be discussing in the future whether there are changes that can be made. We don't generally take a stance on state bills. Sometimes we do, and we can discuss whether we want to do that as a group. We have an internal state legislative committee, that will definitely discuss and review what's going on, and then we can discuss as a group and decide if we want to take that stance. But we really, really appreciate everybody coming and talking tonight. We heard, Bill C, Silver Sneakers, Treetop, Breck Create. We really appreciate you guys being a part of this process, and it's a great way to start off the new year with so many people willing to come and talk about what's going on. So thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it. Okay, continued business. Second reading of Council Bills Series 2023 and 2024. We are going to start with Council Bill number 42, Series 2023, an ordinance of the Town of Breckenridge setting forth the annual supplemental appropriation for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2023. Is this Tracy? Yes.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Tracy Lambert, Senior Accountant. I'm here for the second reading for the ordinance appropriating the funds required for the adopted budget 2023. We consider the November actuals and the projection for December to come up with the adjustments to the budget requested that's laid out in the packet. The first reading was presented with that information of the funds that need to be, we need some more expenditures appropriated.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Any questions?
I have a question. It's Series 2023, but it's 2024 now. Are you aware of that?
That's correct, Jeffrey, because we introduced the bill in 2023, so it
so
carries through, and then the ordinance would be a 2024.
I get you, because I might be making this motion. I want to make sure I get it right. All right, good. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Public comment? No comments? We will see if we have a motion.
I'm very much inclined to make a motion on Council Bill number 42, Series 2023, with the title which has been read into the record.
For discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Rankin.
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman.
Yes.
Councilmember Sade.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens.
Yes. Moving on to Council Bill number 43, Series 2023, an ordinance concerning the leasing of Breckenridge Professional Building. Scott.
Good evening,
Ms. Mayor Pro Tem and Town Council, before you is a second reading for the lease for a unit within the Breckenridge Professional Building to U.S. Bank. It is a lease in which, it's longer than 1 year, so therefore it gets council consideration and required ordinance. They have requested a 2-year lease with a 1-year option to continue, so ultimately 3-year lease if needed. And no changes have occurred since the first reading, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions for Scott?
It's very well stated.
Any comments from the public on this one? No. Can I get a motion?
I have much interest to sponsor Council Bill number 43, Series 2023. The title has been read into the record.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? No. Roll call, please.
Sade. Yes. Councilmember Rankin.
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron.
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens.
Yes. All right, Council Bill number 44, Series 2023, for an ordinance submitting to a vote of the registered electors of the town of Breckenridge at a regular municipal election to be held on April 2nd, 2024. A proposed amendment to the charter of the town of Breckenridge to lengthen the term of election commissioners from 2 years to 4 years. So is that one all together? Sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens and council members, this is a pretty straightforward change to the charter to propose that we lengthen the term of the election commissioner members from 2 to 4 years. And the idea here is that we can have them gain experience over more than one election cycle. If you have any questions.
Okay, so is Council Bill 44 and 45, and you can't make them together. Okay.
Any real questions?
That's a real question.
All right. Any comments from the public on this one? No? Jeffrey, your motion.
I'm electing to motion Council Bill number 44 on second reading, Series 2023, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Helen.
Councilmember Beckerman.
Yes.
Councilmember Sade. Councilmember Bergeron.
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin.
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens.
Yes. All right. Council Bill number 45, Series 2023, for an ordinance submitting to a vote of the registered electors of the town of Breckenridge at a regular municipal election to be held on April 2nd, 2024, a proposed amendment to the charter of the town of Breckenridge to remove the residency and elector requirement for membership on permanent boards and commissions.
This is another proposed ballot measure that would we believe that removing the more restrictive language from the charter that requires that all appointees to boards and commissions be registered electors and residents of the town of Breckenridge should be deleted, and then allows council a little bit more flexibility to establish the qualifications for board and commission members in the municipal code. This will not affect planning commission, and it will not affect the election commission because those qualifications are currently established by charter. And the boards established by code would be subject to potentially some changes that would, in this case, allow council, for example, more flexibility to appoint members that are more broadly living and working in the upper blue boundaries. The other thing that this will achieve is to more permanently embed some of our boards that we have treated as temporary, for example, Social Equity Commission, to make it more permanent in part in the structure of the town of Breckenridge organization. If you have any questions.
Thanks, Kirsten.
I can see why we couldn't make those concluding.
Very different.
They're a lot different. Yeah. So.
Any questions for Kirsten?
No.
No. Any comments from the public? No. A motion, please.
Yes, through sheer tyranny of will, I make the motion to move on Council Bill number 45, Series 2023, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Helen.
Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron.
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin.
Yes.
Councilmember Sade.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens.
Yes. All right, new business. We have no first readings tonight, but we do have 4 resolutions. Resolution number 1, Series 2024, a resolution determining that the April 2nd, 2024 regular town election shall be a mail-in ballot election.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, this resolution would do, as it says in the title, setting the April 2nd regular municipal election as a mail ballot election, and this is required by town code.
Thank you, Helen. Any questions? Any comments from the public? All right, we'll go ahead with the motion.
I move the pass resolution number 1, Series 2024, a resolution determining that the April 2nd, 2024 regular town election should be a mail-in ballot where everything changes.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Beckerman.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron.
Yeah.
Councilmember Sade.
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin.
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton. Mayor Pro Tem Owens.
Yes. All right. Resolution number 3, Series 2024, a resolution of the Town Council calling a special municipal election to fill a vacancy in the office of mayor to be held on April 2nd, 2024 at the same time and in the same manner as the regular municipal election.
You need number 2.
Oh, I did. Oh, skip 2. Oh, yeah. See, I didn't want to accept that resignation.
Nicely done.
Resolution number 2, Series 2024, a resolution of the Town Council accepting the resignation of Mayor Eric Mamula.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens and council members, this is a formality that needs to occur. We did receive the letter of resignation from Mayor Mamula so that he could then tend to his new duties serving as a Summit County Commissioner. We need to ask council to approve the resignation, which is then going to effectively create the vacancy in the office. And Councilmember Bergeron, if you would make the motion.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. With much regret.
Wait, so we don't need to do the questions and things?
Oh, do you have questions? Yes.
Okay. And public comment? Yeah. We need to do all that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right. There's a little bit of consternation about whether we really need to do it or not.
There's no public hearing on the resolution. But
Okay.
yes, take questions, please.
Perfect. Questions for Kirsten? No? All right. Can I get a motion?
Yes, with much regret, I move we pass resolution number 2, Series 2024, resolution of the Town Council accepting the resignation of Mayor Eric Mamula.
Second.
That was nice, sad sounding. Second. I said it before, but I think it's worth saying again that we just really appreciate Eric's time. He's been a part of this community in a very public way for, about the last 30 years. And we're very appreciative of all that he's given, all the energy and dedication and thought that he's given to the town. And we're sad to see him go, but very happy to see him continue at the county. So we're grateful to him for his time here.
I think you speak for all of us.
Thank you. All right, roll call.
Councilmember Bergeron.
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
Councilmember Sade.
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman.
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens.
Yes. All right, now resolution number 3, Series 2024, a resolution of Town Council calling a special municipal election to fill a vacancy in the office of the mayor to be held on April 2nd, 2024, at the same time and in the same manner as the regular municipal election.
So this resolution is to set the date. This is a charter requirement to set the date for the special vacancy election. due to some of the rigid timeframes that Helen needs to meet under the various election codes, which there's quite a few of them. And given the close in time to the regular election, this vacancy election will be held concurrently with the regular election, April 2nd, 2024. And during this interim period, as I noted earlier today, Mayor Pro Tem Kelly Owens, by charter, is now to fulfill the duties of the mayor until the election occurs in April. So,
Thanks, Kirsten. Questions? All right, we're ready for a motion.
I move we pass resolution number 3, Series 2024 resolution of the Town Council calling for a special municipal election to fill a vacancy in the office of mayor to be held April 2nd, 2024 at the same time and in the same manner as a regular municipal election.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Helen.
Councilmember Rankin.
Yes.
Councilmember Sade.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron.
Yes.
Councilmember Beckerman.
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens.
Yes. All right, resolution number 4, series 2024, a resolution approving a settlement agreement made among the City of Colorado Springs acting through its utilities enterprise, CSU, the Colorado River Water Conservation District, the County of Summit, the Town of Breckenridge, the Grand Valley Water Users Association, the Orchard Mesa Irrigation District, and the Ute Water Conservancy District acting by and through the Ute Water Activity Enterprise. You better not reread that.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens and council members, we did a kind of deep dive in work session on this. This is an excellent outcome for both water rights and our potential future storage. And there is an outcome that will result in half of the cost of constructing the Lower Blue Reservoir in the future for storage purposes for the town. And this settlement agreement does require that the governing bodies of all the entities that have come together here, which include Colorado Springs Utility, the Colorado River Water Conservation District, Summit County, and some other Western Slope entities, each governing body needs to approve this settlement agreement. It is my understanding that Breckenridge is the first to take action on it. If you have any additional questions from earlier today, please let me know. Or James. I let James know.
Coach James. Thank you, Kirsten.
Yeah, great job.
Questions? No? All right. Can we have a motion?
Yes. Considering that you did a deep dive into the Lower Blue Reservoir, I'm comfortable making the resolution number 4, series 2024, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
Any further discussion?
She set me up with the deep dive.
It was good. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Beckerman.
Yes.
Councilmember Sade.
Yes.
Councilmember Bergeron.
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin.
Yes.
Councilmember Carlton.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Owens.
Yes. All right, moving into Planning Commission decisions, there were none. They had a conversation on window signage. Report of the town manager and staff.
I just have one thing tonight. It's time to choose our board representation for Northwest Council of Governments. Kristen Brownson is our representative. Her alternate was Mayor Mamula. So Mayor Pro Tem, I don't know if you'd like to take that on or if you'd like to assign it to someone else. I will say it's pretty minimal. Kristen makes most of the meetings.
I'd love to take that on.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm fine. I want to do it.
Are you sure?
No,
I don't want to take that.
No, I got it.
Okay. All right. Anything else? No. Okay. Report of the mayor and council members. We have MMC this week, so we must not have had it since. Okay. Open space.
No meeting later in the month.
Tourism.
No meeting.
History.
We have a meeting tomorrow.
Creative arts, besides what Tamara already brought to us. CML advisory board.
Have not had a meeting.
Child cares tomorrow. social equity we had. Anything further to add?
No, but that was a really feel good presentation.
Yeah. I'm glad they were able to report out on their work. It feels like they've done a lot, and it's great to be able to recognize that for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. And when the community impact report comes out in a couple months, that'll also be very insightful.
Yeah, good.
And the committee just keeps getting stronger and stronger. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great community member involved out. Yeah. Okay, any other matters?
I have just one question. Scott, what is the rate, senior rate at the rec center yearly?
It's $240 for an annual rate for anyone over 60.
Okay.
It's the same rate that we have for anyone under 18. It's the same rate.
In the Silver Sneakers, it's not the only thing, program that.
No, I think we estimated there were seven or eight, and so we had lots of different requests.
In different paperwork for each one?
Correct. And so part of this is a decision that happened at budgeting so 2022, the end of 2022. The idea was to give a grace period of a year, 2023, to say no charging of anyone over 60, and then therefore institute the lowest possible annual rate.
Okay.
So this is the year in which it takes effect.
And so the like when it was just Silver Sneakers, that was an easier process than having the other 6, because each one required a different registration, different forms, different, kind of to get reimbursed.
It is a pretty heavy lift administratively, but that's not the reason why the decision was made. It was largely because there were so many options. People said, well, why are you doing Silver Sneakers and not letting me in with Active Renew was another version. And so there were multiple programs out there. And I think, the council's decision was, let's just have one, let's charge the lowest annual rate possible and be consistent to all seniors, rather than saying Silver Sneakers gets one rate and then everyone else gets a different rate or whatever that looks like.
It comes to $20 a month.
It's $20 a month. And that's the maximum allowed return that we got under Silver Sneakers, that if you maxed and went every day, the maximum you would get is $20. The recreation center would get in
if you went 30 days a month.
30 days a month, we would get $20 whether you went 5 days or 30 days.
Okay.
And so the idea was, if it was the same level and it was, again, consistently applied to all seniors, which is 60 in this case, not 60.
So this isn't a money-making entity, because we're making the same amount of money, making the same amount of money either way.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
And I do think, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to add to Scott's point that we also offer financial assistance.
I was just going to ask.
It's available to anyone who wants. And I did have a brief conversation about that. And the answer was, I don't need it. I don't really want that. I just want to make the point that I don't want to pay. That was kind of
about the Social Security. So if people were on some sort of, fixed income, they could come in and apply.
Absolutely.
We do that routinely with families and certainly with youth. And we have offered that. We have provided it to seniors as well. But there are fewer that have. It's really not need-based, I would say that.
Yeah.
I just looked up Denver's, and they say they want a tax return, and it's more about we can try to work with everyone who applies.
So it's not a heavy lift, the application. Basically just come in and ask. Who do they ask?
John Doerr has been handling a lot of these questions, and yes, he also handles the scholarship, again, financial assistance program. So that is available.
And if they buy the pass on Black Friday sale, is that half or $100 off? Or
so the best rate you're going to get is the annual rate. That's the price that I quoted to you, which is $240. If you buy a Black Friday pass, that's only good for essentially the ski season, if you will. So it's a certain product for a certain time frame. But the best rate is an annual rate.
Okay.
What were the costs to the end users if they went Silver Sneakers? Was it free?
So they pay for supplemental health insurance in addition to Medicare. So they're paying for an additional Medicare cover, or sorry, additional insurance coverage above and beyond Medicare.
Yep.
That's, and then, so they pay extra, and then in return, they get free access. In turn, we have, to the facility, then our staff then has to bill Silver Sneakers, and
yep,
we can go into the details.
Yeah, I
That was
remember
part of
that.
The challenge that we had with billing back, and people weren't eligible anymore, and it just was it did become an administrative challenge for us.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the most important part is that it's a need-based situation and it's available if there is a need.
Yeah, and I think I guess, I'm sure you're doing this anyway, but I would encourage John to be very sensitive to people that would like to come but can't afford $20 a month. So.
Okay. Any other
I'd like to just speak to the letter on fireworks for New Year's Eve. I'd love to see us reconsider that. I know we had some concerns with wildlife and such, but I think with all of the avalanche control bombing that happens, it's really not that different. And it's a great family activity. With we used to do it at 9 o'clock, and I've heard from a lot of guests disappointment in that as a family activity is now going away, and it takes away from some of the festivity of the holidays. So
We watched the torchlight. That was kind of cool.
it's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody else has any
I would be willing to.
willingness to reconsider that, but I would really like to see us get back to that.
Any other interest?
Is that
Jay?
I don't have an interest in it.
Anybody else?
I'll have a
You like
$100,000 credit, don't we?
Yeah.
With fireworks, so might as well use it. Give it a
But
shot.
with the possibility of laser shows and there are other things that kind of festive things we could do without
We looked into laser shows up here, and it's just the wind. Too often we have too much wind. It's just
Okay,
it's
well.
not a practical thing.
Okay, then I won't shoot it down. I'd like to talk about it.
Yeah.
But maybe you should probably do it like April 10th or something. Talk about it
Perfect.
April 10th.
Shannon,
When
April 10th.
when I'm out to pasture.
It's fine. We might want to have staff. There might be something we're not considering that we want staff to talk about, and probably consult with PTO
And
yada, yada.
red,
But
white, and blue.
I'd like, huh?
And red, white, and blue.
Right, sure. But obviously we're never going to do 4th of July again, but New Year's Eve's kind of nice.
Yeah. I think we should at least talk about it.
I have one other matter. Are we still doing that?
Yeah.
Peyton said that we had a email that we had to look at today, and then it dawned on me I haven't looked at these town council emails, like for a month. So if I miss anything, I apologize. And Peyton, and if there's something I need to, was she still here? Just
She's in the sky.
yeah, just remind me, because I'm seeing all this stuff. It's all like fresh. It looks like really interesting stuff, but especially I get a bunch from the barrister and
Like you have about 100 of them, Jeffrey.
unbelievable. What's that? So anyway, I'm sorry.
Is there? Oh, that's all you?
No, I'm just saying, please remind me to look at this stuff, or I could try to remind
I'll
myself.
send you an email
Yeah,
to look
please.
at your.
To look at your- But don't send it to this one. Send it to my regular one.
Okay.
I can't believe how much I missed.
You wait till April 10th, you'll probably have that many again.
I got one from Brooke Atterbury.
I think just because we were not permitted to do it prior, I would love just to publicly recognize Rick Holman's service to this town over the last 25 years as the chief of police, the deputy town manager, and the town manager, and just how much he set us all up for huge success with the succession plan, and just our appreciation for his service. I think that's
yeah.
been the best.
And he got bored and got off of the meeting, thankfully. So I'll tell him to listen.
Rick, you missed some good government.
Here he is. No,
Thank you, Jay. Very, very
Yeah,
well
thanks, Jay.
said.
He's here. He's here in spirit. Oh my God. Thank you, Jay. I would have been really remiss if we hadn't said something. So.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? look at the scheduled meetings, and we're adjourned.
Well done.
Less than an hour. Less